What if betrayed Deku conquered the League of Villains and formed a villain harem with Toga and Lady Nagant? Chapter 1, Betrayal and Descent. The training facility at UA High School lay in ruins. Blood-spattered walls, shattered equipment, and the moans of injured students created a scene of devastation that would haunt the school for years. In the center of it all stood Izuku Midoriya, his eyes wide with shock and confusion, his hands trembling as he stared at his classmates writhing on the ground. What happened? Izuku whispered, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. Recovery Girl rushed in with the medical team, gasping at the carnage before her. My God! The faculty arrived seconds later. Present Mick's usual bombastic energy vanished at the sight. Aizawa's tired eyes narrowed dangerously. And then came All Might, no longer in his muscular form but somehow still imposing as his gaze locked onto Izuku. Young Midoriya, All Might said, his voice uncharacteristically cold. What have you done? Izuku's heart plummeted. I didn't, this wasn't me. I was just training and then, I saw it all, came a voice from the doorway. Nito Monoma from Class 1B stepped forward, his face a perfect mask of horror and outrage. He lost control. Said he was tired of being underestimated. That he'd show everyone what real power looked like. That's a lie. Izuku shouted, stepping forward only to freeze as every conscious person in the room flinched away. I would never. 5 students critically injured, Principal Nizu's calm voice cut through as he examined a tablet. Uraraka, Ida, Kirishima, Azui, and Yaoyorozu. Izuku felt his world cracking. No, check the security footage. Someone else was here. I was attacked too, the system was disabled, Aizawa said flatly. Quite convenient. All Might approached Izuku, his face hardened with disappointment. Young Midoriya, I believed in you. I gave you my power because I thought you embodied the true spirit of heroism. I didn't do this. Izuku's voice cracked with desperation. You know me. All Might turned away. I thought I did. Those 4 words shattered something fundamental inside Izuku. The man who had been his idol, his mentor, his hope, dismissing him without even asking for his side of the story. Take him to the conference room, Nizu instructed Aizawa. The police are on their way. 3 hours later, Izuku sat alone in the conference room, still in his torn hero costume. No one had even allowed him to change. The door opened, and Detective Tsukachi entered with several officers. Izuku Midoriya, based on witness testimony and preliminary evidence, you're being placed under arrest for the attempted murder of 5 students. Izuku's mind raced. Detective, please. You can tell when people are lying. Ask me directly, did I attack my classmates? Tsukachi studied him. Did you attack your classmates today? No. Izuku replied immediately. I would never hurt them. The detective's expression remained unchanged. Your quirk has been growing stronger. Eyewitness accounts say you've been frustrated with your progress. Is that true? Well, yes, and you've had altercations with other students before, particularly Katsuki Bakugo? That's different. We've known each other since childhood, Tsukachi sighed. My quirk isn't perfect, Midoriya. People who genuinely believe what they're saying, even if it's false, can bypass it. And people in shock sometimes can't distinguish reality from their perception. The reality of his situation crashed down on Izuku. No one was going to believe him. Someone had set him up perfectly, and everyone had already decided he was guilty. The door burst open, and Katsuki Bakugo stormed in, eyes blazing with fury. You fucking bastard. What did you do to them? 2 officers moved to intercept him, but Bakugo shoved past. Kaken, please, Izuku pleaded. I didn't, shut up. Bakugo roared, explosions crackling in his palms. I always knew you were fucked up. Pretending to be so damn righteous while hiding what a monster you really are. Each word was a knife twisting in Izuku's chest. I'm being framed. If you just listen, they're in critical condition. Uraraka might never walk again. And for what? So you could feel powerful for once. Bakugo's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. You're not even worth beating into the ground. You're nothing, Deku. You never should have been given a quirk. Tsukachi finally intervened. That's enough, Bakugo. Please leave. As Bakugo was escorted out, he stopped at the door. All Might made the biggest mistake of his life choosing you. Left alone with the police, Izuku felt something new crystallizing inside him, not just despair, but a cold, sharp anger that seemed to clarify everything. The system he had idolized his whole life had failed him instantly. The people he would have died for abandoned him without question. I'm activating the quirk suppression system before we transport him, one officer said. His power is too dangerous. Izuku's analytical mind, always his greatest asset, shifted into overdrive. The conference room had 2 exits. The officers were positioned near both. The building would be on lockdown, but he knew UA's security protocols intimately from his hero studies. This wasn't the time for explanation or vindication. This was the time for survival. As the officer approached with the quirk suppression device, Izuku made his decision. He channeled one for all through his entire body at 20%, more than he'd ever risked before, and exploded into motion. The officers never stood a chance. Even Tsukachi, with his years of experience, couldn't react in time. Izuku dodged the detective's grab, vaulted over the conference table, and was through the side door before anyone could fire a weapon. Alarms blared throughout the building as Izuku raced through the halls he once walked with pride and hope. Now they felt like a prison he needed to escape. He calculated his route to avoid major intersections, using his knowledge of the school's layout to his advantage. A massive explosion rocked the corridor ahead, and from the smoke emerged Bakugo, his face twisted with rage. Running proves you're guilty, you piece of shit, he shouted, launching himself at Izuku. For the first time in his life, Izuku didn't hesitate to face Bakugo at full strength. He didn't try to reason, didn't try to de-escalate. As Bakugo propelled himself forward with an explosion, Izuku stepped into the attack and countered with a devastating blow that sent the explosive boy crashing through a wall. I didn't do it, Izuku said coldly as he walked past the stunned Bakugo. But thanks for showing me exactly what our friendship was worth. Bakugo struggled to his feet, blood streaming from his nose. I'll fucking kill you for this. He lunged again, and this time their battle shook the entire floor. Explosions mixed with the green lightning of One for All as 2 of UA's top students fought with genuine killing intent. All these years, Izuku growled as he blocked a blast and countered with a kick, I looked up to you. Defended you. And you turned on me in an instant. Because you're a fraud. Bakugo screamed back, his explosions growing more erratic. Ain't nobody playing hero while hiding what you really are. Something in Izuku snapped. He stopped holding back, stopped worrying about hurting his former friend. With One for All surging through him, he moved faster than Bakugo could track and delivered a punch that sent the blonde boy flying down the corridor. You're right about one thing, Kaken, Izuku said, standing over Bakugo's semi-conscious form. I'm done playing hero. As Bakugo tried to rise, Izuku delivered one final blow, not to his head or body, but to his right arm. The sickening crack echoed through the hallway as bones shattered. That's so you remember me, Izuku said quietly, then turned and continued his escape. He eventually broke through to the outside, evading the security robots and scaling the UA barrier wall. By the time he dropped to the other side, his hero costume was in tatters, blood, both his and Bakugo's, stained his skin, and the life he had built was in ruins behind him. Izuku Midoriya, once the symbol of Hope's chosen successor, was now a fugitive. For 3 days, Izuku lived in the shadows of Mizurufu, sleeping in abandoned buildings and stealing food to survive. His face was plastered across every news channel and social media platform, the UA. Student who snapped and attacked his classmates before fleeing justice. No one questioned the narrative. No one demanded evidence or a fair trial. The hero society he'd dreamed of joining had already convicted him. On the fourth night, huddled in the corner of an abandoned warehouse, Izuku was jolted from fitful sleep by a soft giggle. "Wow, Deku. You look absolutely terrible." The cheerful, sing-song voice belonged to a blonde girl perched on a stack of crates, swinging her legs casually. "I hardly recognized you without all that annoying optimism." Izuku instantly dropped into a fighting stance, one for all crackling around him. "Toga." Himiko Toga clapped her hands together in delight. "You remember me. I'm so flattered. What do you want?" Izuku demanded, eyes darting around for other league members. "Just to chat." Toga hopped down from the crates and skipped toward him, seemingly unbothered by his battle-ready posture. "Everyone's talking about you, you know. The hero student who went all murdery on his friends. I have to say, I didn't see it coming, but I'm absolutely loving this new you." Izuku's jaw clenched. "I didn't attack them." Toga stopped a few feet away, tilting her head. "No. That's interesting too." She circled him, eyes bright with fascination. "So the heroes just threw you away for something you didn't do?" "That's so, deliciously tragic." "If you're here to kill me, get on with it," Izuku snapped. Toga laughed. "Kill you? Why would I waste something so precious?" Her eyes turned hungry. "You're beautiful like this, Deku. All broken and angry and lost. I could just eat you up." She moved closer, and Izuku tensed, ready to strike. "But I'm not here for a snack," she continued. "I'm here with an invitation. The League's been watching you. Shigaraki thinks you might be useful, especially with that fancy quirk of yours." Izuku's mind raced. The League of Villains, the organization responsible for so much suffering, led by the man determined to destroy Hero Society. The same Hero Society that had just destroyed him. "Why would I join you?" he asked, buying time to think. Toga shrugged. "Where else would you go? Back to the heroes who betrayed you? To your mommy's house where they'll find you in hours?" Her smile turned vicious. "Face it, Deku. You've got nowhere else to go but down." She was right, and that realization hit Izuku like a physical blow. There was no going back. No clearing his name. No redemption arc waiting for him. But maybe there was something else. A new path. "If I join," he said slowly, "I do it my way. I'm not a mindless thug." Toga's eyes widened with delight. "Ooh, making demands already. Shigaraki's gonna love that." She extended a hand. "So, what do you say? Ready to see how the other half lives?" Izuku stared at her offered hand. This was a point of no return. But he realized he'd already crossed that line the moment he broke Bakugo's arm. He took her hand. "Lead the way." Toga's smile was all teeth. "This is going to be so much fun." The League's current hideout was a decrepit apartment building in a forgotten corner of Yokohama. Toga led Izuku through a maze of back alleys, chattering about nothing while occasionally checking to ensure they weren't followed. "Everyone's super excited to meet you," she said, bouncing on her toes as they approached a rusted service door. "Well, except Dabi. He's never excited about anything. And Shigaraki's more, intensely curious than excited. Like when you see a bug you want to squish but also kind of want to watch for a while first." "Comforting," Izuku muttered. Toga punched in a code, and the door clicked open. "Home sweet home. At least until we have to move again. We move a lot. It's like a fun little game of hide and seek with the heroes." The interior was surprisingly well maintained compared to the exterior, clearly part of the disguise. Toga led him down a corridor to what had once been a communal dining area. Now it served as the League's main gathering space. The room fell silent as Izuku entered. Tamura Shigaraki sat on a tattered couch, one hand idly scratching at his neck. Dabi leaned against a wall, blue flames dancing between his fingers. Spinner and Mr. Compress played cards at a table, while Twice paced back and forth, arguing with himself. "Look what I found," Toga announced, pushing Izuku forward. One slightly used hero student, fresh from his villain origin story. Shigaraki's red eyes fixed on Izuku. Midoriya. All Might's pet project. His cracked lips pulled into something approximating a smile. "I didn't actually believe Toga when she said you'd come willingly." "I didn't have many options," Izuku replied, meeting Shigaraki's gaze without flinching. "No, you didn't," Shigaraki agreed. "That's what happens when you play by their rules. They change them whenever it suits them." He gestured around the room. "We all learned that lesson the hard way." Dabi pushed off from the wall. "This is a waste of time. He's a hero at heart. The moment he gets a chance, he'll try to take us all down or run back to his master." "I don't have a master anymore," Izuku said sharply. All Might made that perfectly clear. "Boo, the puppy's got teeth." Toga giggled. Shigaraki rose from the couch and approached Izuku. "Why should we trust you? Why shouldn't I just turn you to dust right now?" The room tensed as Shigaraki raised his hand, fingers spread wide, just one short of the 5 needed to activate his decay quirk. Izuku didn't back away. "Because I can give you what you've always lacked. Strategy. Tactical planning. Information on hero protocols. I've spent my entire life studying heroes, their quirks, their methods, their weaknesses. We have spies for that," Dabi countered. "But none with my insight," Izuku shot back. "None who train directly under the top heroes. None who know how they think." Shigaraki's hand remained poised near Izuku's face. "And why would you help us destroy the world you wanted to protect?" "I don't want to destroy anything," Izuku said calmly, despite the deadly fingers inches from his skin. "I want to reshape it. The hero society I believed in doesn't exist. It's corrupt, built on lies and popularity contests. Real justice doesn't care about media ratings or merchandise sales." A tense silence followed his words. Then Shigaraki lowered his hand and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You sound like Stain," he said. "He'd be proud." "I'm not Stain," Izuku replied. "I don't want to purge heroes. I want to expose the truth about what heroism has become." Shigaraki studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Prove your worth. We're hitting a hero agency tomorrow night. A small one, nothing flashy. You'll plan it." "Which agency?" Izuku asked. Night Eye's former agency. It's still operating even after his death. Izuku's stomach twisted at the mention of Sir Night Eye, the man who had initially doubted him, but whose death had deeply affected him. But he didn't let his emotions show. "I'll need details about your team's capabilities. Floor plans if you have them. And I want to lead the operation." The room erupted in protests, but Shigaraki raised a hand for silence. "You want to lead? After walking in here 5 minutes ago?" "Yes," Izuku said firmly. "Because if I'm going to be useful to you, I need to understand how everyone operates in the field. And because if this is a test of my loyalty, the best way to prove it is to put myself at the greatest risk." Shigaraki's lips twisted into another grotesque smile. "You've got guts, Midoriya. Fine. Plan the raid, lead the team. But Toga and Dabi go with you. And if anything feels wrong," he let his sentence hang unfinished. "I understand," Izuku said. Toga clapped her hands excitedly. "Road trip with Deku. This is the best day ever." Dabi just scowled. "If he betrays us, I'll burn him to ash." Izuku turned to face the fire villain. "If I was going to betray you, I wouldn't have come in the first place. As the meeting dispersed, Toga showed Izuku to a small room with a mattress on the floor. It's not much, but it's yours now. Bathrooms down the hall, try not to get blood in the shower drain, Shigaraki hates that. When she left, Izuku sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at his hands. Hands that had once been covered in scars from his determination to be a hero. Now they might become instruments of villainy. No, he thought. Not villainy. Justice. A different kind of justice than he'd imagined, but justice nonetheless. He was going to show them all exactly what they had created when they cast him aside. Izuku spent the night meticulously planning the raid on Nightai's former agency. By morning, he had compiled a detailed strategy, including entry points, timing, and specific roles for each team member. When he presented it to the League, even Dabi seemed reluctantly impressed. You came up with all this overnight? Mr. Compress asked, examining Izuku's hand-drawn building schematic. I've always been good at analysis, Izuku replied. And I had motivation. Shigaraki approved the plan with minimal changes, and that night, Izuku found himself perched on a rooftop opposite the agency building with Toga, Dabi, and Twice. I'm so excited. Toga whispered, bouncing on her toes. Our first mission together, Deku. It's like a date. It's not a date, Dabi muttered. It's a test to see if he gets us all arrested. Twice nodded emphatically. He's definitely going to betray us. No way he'd betray us. Izuku ignored them, focusing on the building. Security patrol is right on schedule. Twice, you're up. Twice created a clone of himself and sent it walking casually toward the agency's service entrance. As planned, the security guard spotted the distinctive villain and radioed for backup, drawing attention away from the roof access Izuku had identified as their entry point. Now, Izuku said, and the team moved. They crossed to the adjacent building via a maintenance bridge, exactly as Izuku had outlined. Dabi melted the lock on the roof access door, and they slipped inside. Twice distraction will keep them busy for approximately 7 minutes, Izuku said quietly. The server room is 2 floors down. Toga, take point. If we encounter anyone, use your quirk to pass as a staff member. Toga grinned and flipped a small knife in her hand. Just need a little sample first. They moved through the darkened hallways with surprising efficiency. Izuku's directions were precise, accounting for patrol routes and security camera blind spots he'd identified from studying similar agency layouts. When they reached the server room, Dabi stepped forward. What exactly are we looking for? Shigaraki wasn't clear. Client lists, Izuku replied. Information on hero patrol routes. And any data on ongoing investigations into the League. That's actually useful, Dabi admitted grudgingly. As Mr. Compress used his quirk to collect the server drives, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the building. That's too soon, Izuku frowned. Twice distraction should have lasted longer. Maybe they called in a pro-hero, Toga suggested, looking more excited than concerned. Izuku quickly reassessed. Change of plan. Dabi, create a diversion on the east side of the building. Toga, get to the north stairwell and cause confusion. I'll escort Compress with the drives. Everyone moved without question, automatically following his lead. As they split up, Izuku felt a strange sensation, the rush of being in charge, of having a plan come together even when complications arose. He guided Mr. Compress through a maintenance corridor, avoiding the rush of security personnel responding to Dabi's fiery diversion. They were almost to their extraction point when a voice called out from behind. That's far enough. Izuku turned to see a pro-hero he recognized instantly, Rock Lock, the same hero who'd been on the overhaul raid. Midoriya. Rock Lock's eyes widened with recognition. So the reports were true. You really did go villain. Izuku pushed Mr. Compress toward the exit. Get the data back to base. I'll handle this. Rocklock activated his quirk, attempting to lock Izuku in place, but Izuku was already moving, one for all surging through his body. He ricocheted off the walls, avoiding the areas Rocklock had affected, and closed the distance between them in seconds. The pro hero was good, experienced and tactically sound. But Izuku had spent years studying heroes like him, knew his fighting style and quirk limitations intimately. You had such potential, Rocklock grunted as he blocked one of Izuku's strikes. Why throw it all away? Something cold settled in Izuku's chest. I didn't throw anything away. It was taken from me. He feinted left, then dropped low, sweeping Rocklock's legs out from under him. As the hero fell, Izuku delivered a precise strike to his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs and leaving him gasping on the floor. Izuku could have knocked him unconscious. Maybe should have. But instead, he knelt beside the struggling hero. Tell All Might I said thanks for the lesson in loyalty. Then he was gone, racing to rejoin his team at the extraction point. They made it back to the hideout without further incident, the mission a complete success. Shigaraki was waiting when they returned, fingers tapping impatiently against his knee. Well, he demanded. Mr. Compress produced the compressed server drives. Complete success, thanks to our new strategist. All eyes turned to Izuku, who stood calmly, his hero costume now completely replaced with dark tactical gear that Toga had procured for him. We encountered a pro hero, Dabi added, his tone betraying a hint of respect. Midoriya handled him. Shigaraki's eyes narrowed. Handled how? I left him alive, Izuku said flatly. Killing him would have brought more heat than it was worth. For a moment, tension filled the room as Shigaraki considered this answer. Then he nodded slowly. Pragmatic. I like that. He gestured to the drives. What did we get? As Mr. Compress restored the servers and they began extracting data, Izuku felt Toga slide up beside him. You were amazing out there, she whispered, pressing uncomfortably close. So commanding, so decisive. It made my blood just tingle. Under normal circumstances, her proximity would have flustered him. But the old Izuku, the stammering, blushing boy who couldn't talk to girls, seemed to have died the day UA betrayed him. It was just strategy, he replied calmly. But thank you. Over the next few hours, as they sorted through the intelligence they'd gathered, Izuku noticed something shifting in the way the League members interacted with him. The open hostility had been replaced with cautious respect. Even Dabi seemed less antagonistic. Later that night, as Izuku sat alone reviewing hero patrol patterns from the stolen data, Shigaraki approached him. You did good today, the League leader said, scratching absently at his neck. But I'm curious about something. Izuku looked up. What? You could have gone anywhere after UA turned on you. Gone into hiding. Left the country. Why come to us? It was a fair question, one Izuku had been asking himself as well. Because you're the only ones who see the hero system for what it really is. Corrupt. Superficial. Built on lies. Shigaraki studied him. And what do you want out of this arrangement, Midoriya? Revenge? Justice, Izuku replied without hesitation. But not the kind All Might talked about. Real justice. Exposing the truth about heroes who smile for cameras while abandoning anyone who becomes inconvenient. A slow, unsettling smile spread across Shigaraki's face. You might actually belong here. That's unexpected. As Shigaraki walked away, Izuku returned to his analysis of the patrol data. But his mind was elsewhere, processing the strange new reality he found himself in. He had successfully led a villain operation. Had fought against a pro-hero, someone who, just a week ago, he would have given anything to work alongside. And strangest of all, he didn't feel guilty. He felt free. The weight of trying to live up to impossible expectations, of constantly seeking approval from mentors who discarded him at the first sign of trouble, all of it was gone. In its place was something new. Something focused and cold and calculating. Something that might one day take over the very league he had just joined. Weeks passed, and Izuku's position within the league solidified. With each successful operation he planned and led, his influence grew. Shigaraki still commanded ultimate authority, but increasingly deferred to Izuku's tactical suggestions. What had started as a desperate alliance of convenience was evolving into something more complex. The League members, once united only by their desire for destruction, began operating with greater purpose under Izuku's guidance. Their targets became more strategic: corrupt hero agencies, exploitative support companies, government officials taking bribes to look the other way when top heroes broke laws. Today, they were gathered around a table in their newest hideout. They'd relocated twice since Izuku joined, planning their biggest operation yet. The Hero Public Safety Commission has a black site facility here, Izuku said, pointing to a location on the map spread before them. According to the data we've gathered, they're training child soldiers there, just like they did with Hawks. Children? Spinner asked, looking disturbed despite his villainous status. Izuku nodded grimly. Orphans. Kids with powerful quirks whose parents mysteriously disappeared. They're molded into perfect weapons for the Commission's black ops. Twice pounded a fist on the table. That's completely ethical. It's absolutely horrific. Even heroes have their dirty secrets, Mr. Compress mused. Shigaraki leaned forward. So what's the plan? Destroy the facility? No, Izuku replied firmly. We rescue the children and expose the operation to the public. Maximum impact with minimal violence. Dabi snorted. Since when are we a rescue organization? Since it serves our larger goal, Izuku countered. What turns public opinion against heroes faster, random destruction or proof that the system exploits children while preaching about justice? The room fell silent as they considered his point. Even Dabi couldn't argue with the logic. I like it, Toga said, lounging across two chairs. It's so deliciously ironic. Villains saving children from heroes. Shigaraki scratched his neck aggressively, clearly wrestling with the concept. It's not our usual approach. That's why it will work, Izuku insisted. They're expecting bombs, destruction, casualties. They're not expecting a precision extraction that makes them look like monsters. After further discussion, the plan was approved. Izuku would lead the main team to extract the children, while Dabi and Compress would gather evidence of the program's existence. Shigaraki, still wary of capture, would coordinate from their base. As the meeting broke up, Toga skipped alongside Izuku. You're changing us, you know, she said, her tone uncharacteristically serious. We used to just break things because we could. Izuku glanced at her. Is that a complaint? Her smile returned, bright and unsettling. Nope. It's much more fun this way. More blood, more chaos, more delicious public outrage. She twirled a knife between her fingers. Plus, I get to watch you be all commanding and clever. That night, as Izuku prepared for the operation, carefully checking his equipment, Shigaraki entered his room without knocking. We need to talk, the league leader said, leaning against the doorframe. Izuku set down the support item he'd been modifying, a pair of reinforced gloves similar to his old ones, but designed for offensive capability rather than self-protection. About what? Shigaraki's red eyes fixed on him. About what you're really doing here. A tense silence followed. Izuku kept his expression neutral, waiting. You've been with us for almost a month, Shigaraki continued. In that time, you've completely redirected our operations. Changed our targets. Shifted our methods. He tilted his head. It's almost like you're taking over. There it was, the confrontation Izuku had been anticipating. He could deny it, pledge loyalty, play the grateful recruit. Or he could tell the truth. He chose the latter. I am taking over, Izuku said calmly. Not through force or manipulation, but by showing a better way forward. Shigaraki's hand twitched, and for a moment, Izuku thought he might lunge forward with his decay quirk active. Instead, he laughed, that same harsh, grating sound from their first meeting. I knew it, he said. The moment you walked in demanding to lead operations. You never stopped being the same annoying, self-righteous kid who charged at me in that mall. Izuku stood, refusing to be intimidated. You're right. I didn't. I just found a new outlet for it. And what happens when your better way conflicts directly with what I want? It was the question they'd both been avoiding. The inevitable collision of their fundamentally different worldviews. Then we'll deal with it when it happens, Izuku replied. But right now, my approach is getting results. The public is questioning heroes in ways they never have before. Isn't that what you wanted? Shigaraki's fingers flexed. I wanted destruction. You're building something. Sometimes you have to build something new on the ashes of the old. For a long moment, they stared at each other, two leaders with incompatible visions temporarily aligned. Finally, Shigaraki pushed off from the doorframe. The commission raid happens as planned, he said. But afterward, we're going to have a more detailed discussion about leadership. After he left, Izuku returned to his preparations, his mind racing. The confrontation he'd been anticipating had finally arrived, earlier than he'd hoped. Shigaraki wasn't stupid, he could see the subtle shift in allegiances occurring within the League. Toga's playful but genuine attachment to Izuku. Twice increasing deference to his plans. Even Dabi's grudging respect. The League was fracturing along new lines, with Izuku as an alternative center of gravity. He needed to accelerate his timeline. The commission raid would be perfect, high-profile enough to cement his approach as superior, complex enough to require Shigaraki to rely on him. And if that wasn't enough, well, Izuku had contingencies for that too. The Hero Public Safety Commission's black site was disguised as a private boarding school, nestled in a remote forest area. On the surface, everything appeared normal: school buildings, dormitories, recreational facilities. But beneath the manicured grounds lay the true operation, a training facility where children with exceptional quirks were molded into living weapons. Izuku's team consisted of himself, Toga, Spinner, and several of Twice's clones. They approached under cover of darkness, using the forest as concealment. Remember the plan, Izuku said as they reached the perimeter. Non-lethal force only. We're here to rescue children and gather evidence, not create martyrs. Spinner adjusted his sword harness. What about the guards? They won't exactly welcome us with open arms. Incapacitate, don't kill, Izuku replied firmly. These aren't pro-heroes, they're just commissioned security forces. Most of them probably don't even know what's really happening here. Toga pouted. You never let me have any fun anymore, Deku. Despite her complaint, she followed his instructions perfectly as they breached the outer security. Twice clones created distractions at strategic points, drawing attention away from their actual entry point, a maintenance tunnel Izuku had identified from stolen commission blueprints. The interior was clinical and sterile, a stark contrast to the warm, educational facade above. They encountered their first resistance at a security checkpoint, 4 guards armed with stun batons and capture gear. Izuku moved before the guards could sound an alarm, using one for all at 30% to close the distance instantly. 2 precise strikes left the first guard unconscious. Spinner's blade, modified with a blunt edge at Izuku's insistence, swept the legs out from under another. Toga and a Twice clone handled the remaining 2 with surprising efficiency. The children should be in the East Wing, Izuku said, consulting the facility map he'd memorized. Spinner, take 2 clones and secure our exit route. Toga, with me. They moved deeper into the facility, encountering sporadic resistance that they quickly overcame. Izuku had to admit that Toga was impressive in combat, unpredictable, fast, and surprisingly disciplined when she chose to be. They finally reached a hallway lined with doors, dormitories for the children. Izuku approached the first door and peered through the small window. Inside, a young boy no older than 10 sat on a bed, staring blankly at a wall. "They're here," Izuku confirmed, his heart twisting at the sight of the child's empty expression. It reminded him too much of how he'd felt after his own betrayal, hollowed out, purpose stolen. Toga picked the electronic lock with a device Mr. Compress had provided, and the door slid open. The boy didn't react, didn't even look up. Izuku approached slowly, crouching to the child's eye level. "Hey," he said softly. "We're here to get you out." The boy finally looked at him, his eyes suspicious. "You're not Commission." "No, we're not." "Are you heroes?" The question was asked without hope. Izuku hesitated, then answered honestly. "No. We're not heroes either." Surprisingly, that seemed to reassure the boy more than anything else could have. He stood up. "There are 14 of us." Toga was already working on the next door. "Got another one. This one's a little girl with the cutest scales." One by one, they gathered the children, ages ranging from 7 to 13, all with powerful quirks, all with that same hollow look in their eyes. None resisted or questioned their rescue. If anything, they seemed relieved that their saviors weren't calling themselves heroes. As they led the children toward their extraction point, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. "That's not our alarm," Izuku frowned. Dabi's team must have been discovered. He activated his comm. "Dabi, status?" Ran into some actual pros, Dabi's voice crackled back. "Looks like we weren't the only ones interested in this place tonight." Izuku's mind raced. Which heroes? Endeavor and his brat. Plus some bird-faced kid. Hawks. That complicated things significantly. If the Commission had sent their top weapon to protect this facility, they knew exactly how damaging exposure would be. "Change of plan," Izuku said into the comm, "everyone converge on extraction point B. Spinner, bring the transport vehicle to the east service entrance." He turned to the children. "We need to move fast now. Stay together and follow my instructions exactly." They hurried through the corridors, Izuku constantly recalculating routes to avoid security. They were nearly at the extraction point when an explosion rocked the facility, followed by a wave of intense heat. "Endeavor," Izuku muttered. "Toga, get the children to the extraction point. I'll delay them." "Splitting up is a terrible idea," Toga protested, but Izuku cut her off. "This isn't a debate. Get them out. That's the mission." Something in his tone brooked no argument. Toga nodded and led the children down the corridor while Izuku turned toward the source of the heat. He found Dabi locked in combat with Endeavor and Shoto in a large training area, blue flames clashing with red and orange. The facility was burning around them, evidence potentially going up in smoke. Hawks was nowhere to be seen, a concerning detail that Izuku filed away for later. He assessed the situation quickly. Dabi was outmatched against both Todoroki men, his hatred for them making him reckless. Mr. Compress lay unconscious nearby, his mask cracked. Izuku channeled One for All and launched himself into the fray, aiming a devastating kick at Endeavor's back. The number 1 hero sensed the attack and turned, blocking with a wall of flame that Izuku twisted past. "Midoriya," Endeavor growled, recognition flashing in his eyes. Shoto looked equally shocked. "Midoriya? What are you?" "Save it," Izuku cut him off, landing beside Dabi. "We're leaving." Dabi's face was twisted with rage. "I'm not done with them. The mission is the children, not your family therapy," Izuku snapped, then dodged as Endeavor launched a fire spear at them. "Children?" Shoto looked confused, then horrified as understanding dawned. "The Commission's training program. You're here for the kids." "So are you, apparently," Izuku replied, countering another of Endeavor's attacks. Funny how the number one hero only investigates corruption when it threatens to go public. Endeavor's expression darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about, villain. Don't I? Izuku shot back. Why else would the commission send their top assets to a school in the middle of nowhere at night? You're here to clean up their mess before anyone finds out. Doubt flickered across Shoto's face as he glanced at his father. That moment of hesitation was all Izuku needed. He grabbed Dabi's arm. Cover us. Understanding immediately, Dabi unleashed a massive wave of blue flame that forced the heroes back. In that moment of cover, Izuku scooped up the unconscious Mr. Compress and ran, practically dragging Dabi with him. They sprinted through burning corridors toward the extraction point. Halfway there, they encountered Hawks, who blocked their path, wings spread menacingly. End of the line, kid, the winged hero said, his usual casual demeanor replaced with cold professionalism. You've fallen pretty far. Izuku set Mr. Compress down gently. Not far enough to forget what real heroism should be. Those children were being exploited, turned into weapons like you were. A flicker of something, recognition, guilt, anger, passed over Hawk's face. That program was discontinued. Clearly not, Dabi scoffed. Hawks launched a barrage of feathers at them, but Izuku was ready. He moved at 40% speed, dodging between the deadly projectiles and closing the distance to the winged hero. Their combat was brief but intense, Hawk's speed and experience against Izuku's power and analytical mind. In the end, it was Dabi who created the opening they needed, forcing Hawks to defend against a targeted fire blast that would have incinerated his wings. Izuku capitalized on the distraction, delivering a blow that sent Hawks crashing into a wall. They didn't wait to see if he recovered. Grabbing Mr. Compress again, they raced to the extraction point where Spinner waited with a stolen commission vehicle. Toga had successfully loaded all the children inside. What took you so long? She demanded as they piled in. I was getting worried, Deku. Disagreement with old friends, Izuku replied grimly as Spinner floored the accelerator. They sped away from the burning facility, Izuku looking back only once to see Endeavor's fiery silhouette against the flames. The hero made no attempt to pursue, perhaps understanding that chasing a vehicle full of traumatized children wouldn't play well for his image. The operation had been a success, but not without complications. Dabi's vendetta had nearly compromised everything. And the presence of top heroes suggested the commission had been tipped off, a security breach Izuku would need to investigate. As they drove to a secondary location where they would transfer the children to safer transport, Izuku checked on their young charges. They huddled together in the back of the vehicle, still quiet but with something new in their eyes. Hope, maybe. Or at least relief. One small girl with luminescent skin looked up at him. Are you taking us somewhere bad? Izuku crouched beside her. No. We're taking you somewhere safe. Somewhere you can just be kids. The commission will find us again, an older boy said flatly. No, they won't, Izuku promised. Because after tonight, the commission will have much bigger problems than finding you. He wasn't exaggerating. Mr. Compress had successfully gathered extensive documentation of the program before being discovered. And Izuku had implemented another part of the plan that no one else knew about, transmitting video evidence of the facility to every major news outlet in Japan, courtesy of a support item he'd modified specifically for this purpose. By morning, the Hero Public Safety Commission would be facing the biggest scandal in its history. The rescue of the children was just the beginning. The fallout was even more dramatic than Izuku had anticipated. News of the Commission's secret child training program dominated every headline. Public outrage was immediate and overwhelming. Pro-heroes were bombarded with questions about their knowledge of or complicity in the program. Most significantly, trust in the hero system, already shaken by recent villain activities, suffered a devastating blow. 3 days after the raid, the League gathered around a television in their hideout, watching the continuing coverage. The Commission President has announced her resignation effective immediately, the news anchor reported. In her statement, she denied direct knowledge of the program's continuation but accepted responsibility for the failure of oversight. Meanwhile, the children rescued from the facility remain unaccounted for, leading to speculation about. Shigaraki muted the broadcast. "Quite the result," he said, eyeing Izuku. "The hero system is reeling." "It's what you wanted, isn't it?" Izuku replied. "Exposing the hypocrisy at the heart of hero society?" The League leader scratched his neck absently. "Yes, but not like this. This is too controlled. Too focused." The tension that had been building between them since before the raid crystallized in that moment. Everyone in the room could feel it, the inevitable confrontation between two incompatible visions. "The children are safe," Izuku said, deliberately changing the subject. "They're with people who will protect them and help them recover." Toga bounced on the couch. "Where did you send them, Deku? You never told us that part of the plan." Izuku smiled slightly. "That's because it wasn't part of the League's plan. It was part of mine." Shigaraki's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "I have contacts, people who were similarly disillusioned with the hero system but aren't interested in destruction for its own sake. They're creating a network to protect those who fall through the cracks." "You've been building your own organization within hours," Shigaraki said, his voice dangerously calm. "Just like I suspected." The room tensed as everyone sensed the coming storm. Dabi's hands flickered with blue flame. Twice muttered nervously to himself. Mr. Compress shifted to a position where he could use his quirk effectively. Izuku didn't deny the accusation. "I've been building something better. Something with purpose beyond tearing down the old system." Shigaraki stood, his posture threatening. "We had an agreement." "No," Izuku corrected, also rising. "We had an arrangement of convenience. You needed my skills. I needed your resources and platform. And now you think you don't need me anymore." Shigaraki's voice was soft, almost hurt beneath the menace. Izuku measured his next words carefully. "I think we've reached the point where our paths diverge. You want chaos for its own sake. I want to build something meaningful from the ruins. So what now?" Shigaraki spread his hands. "You walk out and take half my league with you?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Everyone present knew it wasn't hypothetical. Several members had already shown greater loyalty to Izuku than to Shigaraki. "That depends on you," Izuku replied calmly. "We could fight, destroy everything we've built, and give the heroes exactly what they want, villains tearing each other apart. Or..." He paused, "We could evolve." Shigaraki laughed harshly. "Evolve? Into what?" "Something more effective than the League ever was. Something with the power to truly change society, not just terrorize it." For a long moment, no one moved. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, surprisingly, it was Toga who broke the silence. "I like Deku's way better," she declared, skipping over to stand beside Izuku. "It's more fun. More impactful. More, everything." Twice nodded frantically. "I'm with Midoriya. I'd never betray Shigaraki." One by one, the League members made their choices, gravitating toward Izuku until only Dabi remained beside Shigaraki. The fire villain looked between the two leaders, conflict evident on his scarred face. "Your way isn't getting me any closer to Endeavor," he said to Shigaraki. "And his will?" Shigaraki demanded, gesturing at Izuku. Dabi shrugged. "Maybe. The Commission raid brought Endeavor out of hiding. That's more than we accomplished in months of random destruction." With that, he too moved to Izuku's side. Shigaraki stood alone, abandoned by the very league he had built. His hands trembled, and for a moment, Izuku thought he might launch himself forward in a suicidal decay attack. Instead, he laughed, that same harsh, broken sound that somehow seemed sadder now. "All Might's legacy," Shigaraki said, shaking his head. Even as a villain, you're insufferably heroic. Izuku took a step forward. It doesn't have to end with one of us dead, Shigaraki. There's a place for you in what comes next. Your perspective, your rage, they're valuable. They keep us honest. Shigaraki stared at him, red eyes unreadable. And if I refuse? Then walk away, Izuku said simply. Find your own path. But know that whatever you do next, we'll be there to counter it if necessary. It was both an olive branch and a warning. Shigaraki understood it for exactly what it was. After what seemed an eternity, the original league leader lowered his hands. You win this round, Midoriya. But don't think this is over. With those words, he turned and walked out, leaving behind the organization he had created. In the silence that followed, the remaining members looked to Izuku, awaiting direction. The power shift was complete, bloodless but decisive. Well, Mr. Compress said finally. What now, boss? Izuku surveyed his new team. Now we rebuild. The League of Villains is dead. From here on, we're something else entirely. Ooh, do we get a new name? Toga asked excitedly. Something scary but meaningful. The Liberation Front, Izuku replied. Because that's what we're really fighting for, liberation from a corrupt system that fails the very people it claims to protect. As they discussed next steps, Izuku found himself reflecting on the extraordinary path that had led him here. From UA's most promising hero student to leader of Japan's most powerful villain organization in just a few months. All Might had told him once that a true hero rises from adversity stronger than before. The irony wasn't lost on Izuku that his greatest rise had come after his fall from grace. But there was one piece still missing from his new life. One element that would both complete his transformation and provide the critical perspective he needed to avoid becoming just another tyrant. He needed someone who understood both sides, hero and villain, as intimately as he did. Someone whose disillusionment ran as deep, whose skills complemented his own. He needed Lady Nagant. And he knew exactly how to find her. Chapter 2, Revolution within the abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of Mizudafu had seen better days. Crumbling concrete, rusted metal, and forgotten dreams, the perfect headquarters for Japan's most wanted villains. Or as they now called themselves, revolutionaries. Izuku Midoriya stood before his newly formed Liberation Front, the morning sunlight streaming through broken windows behind him. The group watched him with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. After all, they'd just witnessed him bloodlessly coup their previous leader. Shigaraki built the League on destruction, Izuku said, pacing with a confidence that would have been unimaginable to his former classmates. And there's a place for that. But destruction alone doesn't create change, it just creates fear. Fear makes people cling harder to broken systems. Toga sat cross-legged on a crate, twirling a knife between her fingers. But fear's so much fun, Deku. Fun doesn't win revolutions, he replied with a slight smile. Strategy does. And our strategy starts today. He activated a holographic display showing a map of Japan with several locations highlighted. These are our primary targets, not random cities or civilian zones, but the institutions that prop up the corrupt hero system. The Hero Public Safety Commission facilities. The corporate sponsors who profit from merchandising suffering. The government officials who look the other way. Dabi leaned against a pillar, blue flames dancing between his fingers. You're talking about precision strikes. Exactly. Izuku nodded. No more chaos for the sake of chaos. Every action we take serves our larger goal, exposing the truth about hero society and building something better. Mr. Compress twirled his hat thoughtfully. An admirable goal, but the heroes won't simply stand aside. They'll come for us harder than ever after the commission raid. Izuku's smile turned predatory. I'm counting on it. Their desperation will make them sloppy. Make them reveal their true colors. twice raised both hands. I'm completely confused. I understand perfectly. Think of it this way, Izuku explained, we're not just villains anymore. We're revolutionary leaders with an actual vision. And revolutions need public support. Spinner, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. Like Stain. He had followers because people believed in his message. Exactly. Izuku pointed at the reptilian villain. But Stain's methods limited his impact. We'll be more strategic. More focused. He turned to the holographic display again, zooming in on a specific location. Our first target as the Liberation Front will be here, the headquarters of Heroic Image Incorporated. They're the largest hero merchandising company in Japan, and they're built on exploitation. Toga's eyes lit up. Ooh, I remember them. They made those limited edition All Might action figures. They also underpay their factory workers, bury safety violations, and funnel money to corrupt officials, Izuku continued. More importantly, they've been helping the commission cover up scandals for years. He outlined the plan, a surgical strike to extract evidence of corruption while simultaneously broadcasting their message to the public. No civilian casualties. Minimal property damage. Maximum impact. As the meeting dispersed, Dabi approached Izuku. Bold move, taking over and immediately changing everything. Izuku met his gaze steadily. Having second thoughts about backing me? Just making an observation. Dabi's scarred face remained unreadable. Shigaraki won't stay gone forever. And he's not the only one you need to worry about. All for one, Izuku said, showing he understood the implication. His reach is longer than you think. And he doesn't tolerate people interfering with his plans. With that cryptic warning, Dabi walked away, leaving Izuku to consider the new threats he'd just inherited with his leadership position. Later that evening, as Izuku reviewed security schematics in his makeshift office, Toga slipped in without knocking, a habit he'd given up trying to break her of. Working late again? She hopped onto his desk, carelessly scattering papers. All work and no play makes Deku a dull villain. Despite himself, Izuku smiled. I'm trying to keep us all alive and successful. That requires planning. Toga leaned closer, her perpetual grin taking on a different quality. You know what I think? I think you're scared. He raised an eyebrow. Of what? Of stopping. Of pausing even for a second. She tilted her head, golden eyes analyzing him with surprising insight. Because if you stop moving, you might start feeling all those messy emotions you've been shoving down since UA kicked you out. Izuku's smile faded. I'm not repressing anything. Liar. She poked his chest with her finger. You're angry and hurt and sad and betrayed, but you never show it. It's all strategy and plans and revolution. She leaned even closer. Don't you ever just want to scream? Or break something? Or, feel something? Her face was inches from his now, her eyes gleaming with that dangerous mixture of playfulness and hunger that made Toga who she was. I feel plenty, he said quietly. Prove it. She challenged. For a moment, the air between them crackled with tension. Then Izuku gently took her wrist and moved her hand away from his chest. We have work to do, Toga. She pouted but slid off his desk. Fine. Keep bottling it all up. But one day, you're gonna explode, Deku. She skipped to the door, then looked back with a knowing smile. And I really hope I'm there to see it. After she left, Izuku stared at the door for a long moment before returning to his work. Toga wasn't entirely wrong. He had compartmentalized his emotions, channeled his rage and hurt into methodical planning rather than explosive outbursts. But that was strength, not weakness. Control, not repression. At least, that's what he told himself. The strike against Heroic Image Incorporated went exactly as planned. The Liberation Front extracted terabytes of incriminating data, broadcast a manifesto that immediately went viral, and escaped without a single casualty. The public reaction was mixed but undeniably impactful. Thousands of people began investigating the company's practices, and several whistleblowers came forward with additional evidence of wrongdoing. For 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Precision strikes against corrupt institutions followed by strategic information releases that gradually shifted public perception. The heroes seemed always one step behind, arriving at locations the Liberation Front had already cleared. Izuku's leadership style proved effective in ways the Chaotic League had never been. Each member's strengths were deployed strategically. Toga's infiltration abilities. Dabi's raw power. Mr. Compress's extraction techniques. Twice multiplication. Spinner's combat skills. Even new recruits drawn to their cause found purpose under Izuku's guidance. But as their impact grew, so did the response from Hero Society. They've formed a special task force, Izuku announced during a strategy session, displaying news footage of a press conference. Endeavor is leading it, with Hawks as second-in-command. On screen, the Flame Hero addressed reporters with his typical stern demeanor. The so-called Liberation Front represents an evolution in villain organization and methodology. We're responding accordingly with our own specialized unit focusing exclusively on their apprehension. Dabi's eyes narrowed at the sight of his father. About time they took us seriously. This changes our operational parameters, Izuku continued. They'll be faster, more coordinated. We need to adapt. That adaptation came in the form of smaller teams, multiple simultaneous operations, and increasingly sophisticated counter-surveillance measures. Izuku worked tirelessly, often going days with minimal sleep as he refined their strategies. It was during one such late night, as Izuku pored over hero patrol patterns in their newest hideout, that the first assassination attempt came. The only warning was a slight shift in air pressure, almost imperceptible, but enough for Izuku's enhanced senses to detect. He dropped to the floor as something whistled through the space where his head had been, embedding into the concrete wall with a dull thunk. A specialized bullet. Armor-piercing, custom design. Izuku activated one for all, green lightning crackling around his body as he calculated the shot's trajectory. The bullet had come through the window from a building approximately 700 meters away, an extraordinary shot that only an exceptional sniper could make. Instead of taking cover, Izuku made a split-second decision. He charged toward the window and launched himself out into the night, using his quirk to propel himself toward the sniper's position. As he soared through the air, another shot whizzed past him, close enough that he felt its displacement. Whoever this assassin was, they were recalculating and adjusting with incredible speed. Izuku landed on the roof of the distant building with enough force to crack the concrete beneath his feet. His eyes immediately found the figure standing at the opposite edge, tall, composed, a specialized rifle still raised. Lady Nagant. He recognized her instantly from the intelligence files he'd acquired. Former top hero turned Public Safety Commission assassin. Recently escaped from Tartarus during a mysterious prison break. Her hair, a striking pink to blue gradient, blew in the night breeze as she assessed him with cold professional eyes. Impressive reaction time, she said, her voice calm and measured. Most targets don't see the first shot coming, let alone dodge it. Most targets don't have enhanced perception, Izuku replied, studying her posture for signs of her next move. Who hired you? A slight smile curved her lips. Professional curiosity. Strategic information. She lowered her rifle slightly. You're not what I expected, Midoriya. Your file described a naive idealist turned bitter villain. You seem more calculated than that. People change when they see the truth, Izuku said, slowly circling to his right. You of all people should understand that, Lady Nagant. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps, or surprise that he knew her story. The commission sent you, Izuku continued, seeing her reaction confirm his guess. What's left of it, anyway? They're desperate to eliminate the person who exposed them. That's part of it, she acknowledged. But there's more. You've become too effective, too quickly. You're destabilizing the entire system. That's the point. Lady Nagant studied him for a moment, then made a decision. She transformed her arm into her quirk's rifle form with blinding speed and fired. Izuku was already moving, one for all carrying him in a zigzag pattern across the roof as bullets tracked his movement with uncanny precision. Even with his enhanced speed, several shots came close enough to graze his clothing. Her accuracy was phenomenal. He closed the distance in a burst of speed, aiming to disarm rather than injure. But Lady Nagant was no ordinary opponent. She seamlessly transitioned from long-range to close-quarters combat, her rifle arm transforming back into a human limb as she engaged him with expert martial arts. They exchanged blows across the rooftop, each assessing the other's capabilities. Izuku realized quickly that she was holding back, just as he was. This wasn't a fight to the death, it was an evaluation. The commission told you I was a monster, didn't they? Izuku asked as he blocked a strike. A dangerous villain who needed to be put down. Something like that. She twisted away from his counter, graceful despite her lethal intent. But I make my own assessments. And what are you seeing? Someone fighting for something, she replied, landing a blow to his ribs that he only partially deflected. Not just against everything. Their combat continued for several minutes, neither gaining a decisive advantage. Finally, they separated, both breathing heavily but largely uninjured. Lady Nagant lowered her stance slightly. You could have hit me harder at least 3 times. You're holding back. So are you, Izuku observed. Your quirk allows for specialized ammunition. You've been using standard rounds. A moment of understanding passed between them, two professionals recognizing something in each other. Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance? Izuku asked directly. Lady Nagant's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in her eyes. I told you. I make my own assessments. And I'm not convinced you deserve a bullet. She transformed her arm back to its human form completely. Yet. Izuku took a calculated risk. The commission is using you, just like they always have. They don't care about justice, they care about control. I'm well aware of what the commission is, she replied coldly. I was their secret executioner for years. Then why work for them now? Conditional release, she said simply. My freedom for your head. Izuku nodded, understanding perfectly. And if someone offered you a better deal? Lady Nagant's eyebrow raised slightly. Such as? Real freedom. A purpose beyond killing on command. A chance to actually change the system that turned you into a weapon. You're recruiting me? There was a hint of incredulity in her voice. After I just tried to kill you? I'm offering you a choice, Izuku corrected. Something the commission never gave you. For a long moment, Lady Nagant simply studied him. Then she said, You really believe you can change things, don't you? I'm already changing them, Izuku replied with quiet confidence. But I need people who understand both sides of the system. People who've seen its darkest corners and still want something better. People like me, she concluded. People exactly like you. The assassin's expression remained unreadable as she considered his words. Finally, she said, I'll think about it. With that, she stepped backward off the roof, using her quirk to fire a grappling hook to a neighboring building and swinging away into the night. Izuku didn't pursue her. He'd planted the seed. Whether it grew or not would depend on Lady Nagant herself. When he returned to the hideout, he found Toga waiting, a rare serious expression on her face. You went after the assassin alone, she said, her tone accusatory. I identified and neutralized the threat, Izuku replied, wincing slightly as he probed at a bruise forming on his ribs. That's not the point. Toga's voice rose uncharacteristically. You could have been killed. What happens to the Liberation Front if you get yourself shot in the head? Izuku blinked, surprised by her vehemence. I didn't realize you cared so much about the organization's future. I don't care about the stupid organization. She stomped her foot childishly, but her eyes were deadly serious. I care about you, you idiot. The raw emotion in her voice caught him off guard. Toga had always been affectionate in her bizarre, blood-obsessed way, but this was different. This was genuine concern. I'm sorry, he said softly, realizing his mistake. You're right. I should have alerted the team. Toga's anger deflated slightly. Who was it? Lady Nagant. Former hero turned commission assassin. Did you kill her? The gleam returned to Toga's eyes. No. I tried to recruit her. Toga stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing. Only you would try to recruit someone who just tried to put a bullet in your brain. That's why you're so interesting, Deku. Her mood swing was so abrupt that Izuku couldn't help but smile. Toga's emotional extremes were part of what made her Toga. She might actually join us, he said, heading toward the medical supplies to tend to his bruises. She has every reason to hate the commission as much as we do. Toga skipped alongside him. Ooh, another girl. Is she pretty? Is she crazy? Is she good with knives? She's complicated, Izuku replied, remembering the cold professionalism in Lady Nagant's eyes, but also the flicker of something else, pain, maybe, or longing for something more than the life of an assassin. I like complicated, Toga said with a grin. Almost as much as I like you all bruised up like this. Izuku chose to ignore that last comment as he patched himself up. His mind was already working on how to integrate Lady Nagant into the Liberation Front's operations if she did decide to join them. Her skills would be invaluable, but more importantly, her perspective as a former hero who had seen the system's corruption firsthand would add legitimacy to their cause. He just had to convince her that his way forward was better than the Commission's empty promises. 3 days passed with no sign of Lady Nagant. The Liberation Front continued its operations, striking 2 more targets with the same precision and messaging that had become their hallmark. But Izuku remained preoccupied with thoughts of the assassin and what her decision might be. On the 4th day, as he coordinated a mission from their command center, twice burst in with his typical frantic energy. Boss! We've got a visitor. A very dangerous, possibly going to kill us all visitor. She seems totally friendly though. Izuku immediately understood. Where? Perimeter entrance B. Spinners watching her. She surrendered her weapon voluntarily. She's definitely planning to murder us. Izuku headed toward the entrance, mentally preparing for either outcome, a new ally or a renewed assassination attempt. When he arrived, he found Lady Nagant standing calmly while Spinner kept a wary distance, his sword at the ready. You came, Izuku said simply. She nodded once. I did my research on your Liberation Front. Watched your operations from a distance. Read your manifesto. And I'm intrigued, she admitted. You're not just destroying, you're strategically dismantling. There's a difference. Izuku gestured for Spinner to stand down. Does that mean you're accepting my offer? It means I'm exploring my options, she corrected. The Commission wants me to kill you. All for One has also reached out, offering true freedom in exchange for my services. That revelation sent a chill down Izuku's spine. If All for One was actively recruiting, it meant the Shadow Manipulator was making his own moves in response to the Liberation Front's activities. And what do you want? Izuku asked. Lady Nagant's expression remained composed, but her eyes showed a glimpse of long-buried emotion. To never be anyone's weapon again. I can't promise you'll never have to fight, Izuku said honestly. But I can promise you'll never be used. Your skills, your experience, they would be valuable to our cause. But you'd be a partner, not a tool. She studied him carefully. You really believe that, don't you? I do. After a moment's consideration, she extended her hand. Then let's see if your revolution is worth joining, Midoriya. Izuku shook her hand, aware that he was gaining not just a powerful ally but a potential symbol, a former hero assassin choosing his vision over both the establishment and All for One. Integrating Lady Nagant into the Liberation Front proved both easier and more complicated than Izuku anticipated. Her combat skills and strategic mind immediately earned respect from most members. Her calm professionalism balanced some of the group's more volatile personalities. But Toga was another matter entirely. I don't trust her, she declared bluntly during a planning session, twirling a knife as she glared at Nagant across the table. She tried to kill you, and now suddenly she's one of us. That's suspicious even by my standards. Your standards involve stabbing people you like, Dabi pointed out dryly. Exactly. At least I'm consistent. Toga retorted. Lady Nagant remained unfazed by the hostility. Trust is earned. I don't expect it immediately. Good, because you're not getting it, Toga snapped, her usually playful demeanor replaced with genuine wariness. Izuku intervened before the tension could escalate. Nagant brings valuable intelligence on hero protocols and commission operations. That alone justifies her position here. Intelligence that could be falsified, Toga muttered. But isn't, Lady Nagant said calmly. Verify it yourself if you doubt me. Over the following week, an odd dynamic emerged between the three of them. Izuku valued Lady Nagant's strategic input and first-hand knowledge of hero operations. Her suggestions improved their planning, and her combat expertise elevated their training regimen. She quickly became his most trusted advisor on tactical matters. Toga, feeling displaced from her position as Izuku's closest confidant, became increasingly territorial, insisting on participating in missions with him, interrupting his conversations with Nagant, and generally making her displeasure known. The situation came to a head during a raid on a corrupt support company that had been supplying defective equipment to lower-ranked heroes while pocketing the difference. Toga, you'll handle infiltration, Izuku explained during the briefing. Nagant will provide overwatch from this position. Why can't I stay with you? Toga demanded, pouting. Because your infiltration quirk is essential for accessing the secure server room, Izuku replied patiently. I could just take a sample from one of the guards when we arrive, she countered. Lady Nagant interjected calmly, that introduces an unnecessary variable. Preliminary infiltration is cleaner. Nobody asked you, sniper lady, Toga snapped. Enough, Izuku said firmly. Toga, infiltration. Nagant, overwatch. That's final. The mission proceeded according to plan until Toga deliberately deviated from her route, positioning herself near Izuku instead of heading for the server room. This left them exposed without proper intelligence on interior security. When guards responded to their presence, a firefight erupted that should have been entirely avoidable. Izuku found himself pinned down with Toga in a maintenance corridor while security forces closed in. This is exactly why you should have followed the plan, he hissed as bullets pinged off the metal infrastructure around them. Toga just grinned. But now we get to fight together. Isn't that more fun? Before Izuku could respond, a series of precise shots rang out from somewhere above them. One by one, the guards' weapons were disabled by expertly placed bullets that damaged their equipment without injuring the operators. Lady Nagant's voice came through their comms. Northeast corridor clear. Proceed to extraction point B. I've secured the data. She had abandoned her overwatch position to complete Toga's assignment and then clear their escape route, adapting instantly to the mission's breakdown. Once they were safely back at their hideout, Izuku called both women to his office. That was unacceptable, he said, his voice controlled but firm. Toga, you deliberately compromised the mission. Nagant, you abandoned your post without authorization. To save your mission, Lady Nagant pointed out. To save him, Toga corrected with narrowed eyes. Because I put him in danger, and you didn't want me to have the satisfaction of protecting him myself. Nagant raised an eyebrow. Is that what you think this is? Some competition for his attention? Isn't it? Toga shot back. Stop, Izuku cut in. Both of you. This isn't about me. It's about the cause we're fighting for. If we can't work together effectively, everything falls apart. The two women fell silent, though the tension between them remained palpable. Toga, Izuku continued, softening his tone slightly, your skills are invaluable to us, but I need to know you'll follow the plan. I don't like being away from you during missions, she admitted, her usual playfulness giving way to something more vulnerable. What if something happens? That's why we have a team, he explained. Different positions, different roles, all equally important. He turned to Lady Nagant. And while I appreciate your adaptability, we need consistent communication. You made the right call tonight, but next time, advise before acting. Nagant nodded once, accepting the criticism professionally. We're fighting against a system that's had decades to entrench itself, Izuku concluded. We can't afford internal conflicts. After they left, Izuku rubbed his temples tiredly. The dynamic between Toga and Nagant was becoming a liability. He needed to find a way to channel their rivalry into something productive, or at least less destructive. He didn't have long to ponder the problem. That same night, their newest hideout's perimeter alarms triggered, indicating a massive breach in progress. Multiple pro-heroes approaching from all directions, Mr. Compress reported urgently. They found us. Izuku rushed to the command center, quickly assessing the security feeds. What he saw sent ice through his veins. Endeavor led a full assault team of top heroes, Hawks, Best Jeanist, Mirko, Edge Shot, and dozens of support heroes. This wasn't a standard response, it was an all-out effort to decapitate the Liberation Front in one strike. Evacuation Protocol Charlie, Izuku ordered immediately. Essential equipment only. Rendezvous at Safe House 3. As the Liberation Front scrambled to evacuate, Izuku made a rapid calculation. The heroes had too many entry points covered for everyone to escape cleanly. Someone would need to delay them, create a distraction significant enough to split their forces. I'll hold them off, he decided, already moving toward the main entrance. Everyone else get to the extraction vehicles. Toga immediately protested. No way. I'm staying with you. That's not the plan, Izuku replied firmly. The plan is suicide if you face them alone, Lady Nagant interjected, checking her rifle with practiced efficiency. You need support. Before Izuku could argue further, the facility shook as Endeavor's flames breached the outer defenses. No time to argue, Dabi said, blue flames already dancing around his hands. I've got a score to settle with the number one hero anyway. Decisions made themselves in the chaos that followed. Izuku, Lady Nagant, Toga, and Dabi would engage the heroes directly, creating multiple points of resistance to divide their attention. The rest of the Liberation Front would evacuate with their critical data and equipment. As they moved into position, Lady Nagant touched Izuku's arm briefly. This isn't a battle we can win conventionally. We need an exit strategy. Already working on it, he assured her. We just need to buy time. Moments later, the heroes burst through multiple entry points. Endeavor's massive fire attacks illuminated the cavernous main space of their hideout, casting everything in harsh orange light. Hawks soared overhead, feathers slicing through infrastructure to cut off potential escape routes. Best Jeanist's fibers spread through the facility like a web, searching for hiding villains. Izuku stepped into the open, green lightning crackling around his body as he faced his former mentors. Looking for me? Endeavor's flames intensified as he recognized the former UA student. Midoriya. Surrender now and end this peacefully. Peaceful? Izuku laughed bitterly. Like when you peacefully condemned me without evidence? Or when you peacefully tried to cover up the Commission's child soldier program? You've been manipulated, Hawks called down from above. Whatever you think you know, I know exactly what I know," Izuku cut him off. "And so does the public now." While he kept the hero's attention, Lady Nagant had positioned herself in the rafters, her rifle picking off support equipment and capture gear with surgical precision. Toga had transformed into one of the lower-ranked heroes after a brief skirmish, causing confusion in their ranks. And Dabi was engaged in a ferocious flame battle with Endeavor on the facility's east side. The clash was spectacular and devastating. Izuku had grown significantly stronger since leaving UA, pushing One for All to 60% without the physical drawbacks that had once limited him. His combat with multiple pro heroes simultaneously demonstrated just how far he'd come. Hawks dove at him with blinding speed, dozens of feathers converging from all directions. Izuku dodged through them with lightning reflexes, countering with a shockwave that disrupted the winged hero's flight pattern. When Best Jeanist attempted to ensnare him with carbon fiber threads, Izuku used their tension against them, pulling the hero off balance before delivering a devastating kick. Through it all, Lady Nagant provided crucial support, her bullets neutralizing threats before they fully materialized. Her coordination with Izuku was flawless, as if they'd been fighting together for years rather than days. "The eastern exit is compromised," her calm voice came through his earpiece. "Dabi is pinned down by Endeavor and Shoto." "Understood," Izuku replied, ducking under Mirko's powerful kick. "Toga, status?" "Having a blast." Her gleeful voice responded, accompanied by sounds of chaos as her disguised form sowed confusion among the hero ranks. The battle raged for nearly 15 minutes, far longer than the heroes had anticipated from a surprise assault. Their frustration became evident as Endeavor's attacks grew more destructive, Hawk's precision deteriorated, and communication between hero teams broke down. Finally, Izuku received the confirmation he'd been waiting for. "All personnel clear except Strike Team," Mr. Compress reported. "Data and equipment secured." "Execute Phase 2, Izuku ordered, then called to his team. "Disengage and converge on Point Delta." Dabi broke away from his increasingly personal battle with Endeavor, leaving a wall of blue flame to cover his retreat. Toga abandoned her disguise in the confusion, slipping away through service corridors. Lady Nagant provided covering fire, forcing the heroes to take defensive positions. They regrouped at the facility's underlevels, where Izuku had prepared their contingency, a network of maintenance tunnels that connected to the city's drainage system. "They'll follow us," Lady Nagant noted as they entered the tunnels. "That's what this is for," Izuku replied, revealing a device he'd been carrying. "Courtesy of our raid on that support company. Localized EMP. It'll disable their communications and tracking equipment for approximately 30 minutes. Dabi raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. "You had this planned all along." "I always plan for worst-case scenarios," Izuku confirmed, activating the device before sealing the tunnel entrance behind them. They navigated the labyrinthine drainage system in darkness, guided only by Izuku's memorized route and the occasional glow of Dabi's flames. After nearly an hour of difficult travel, they emerged 2 districts away from their compromised hideout, in an industrial zone with minimal surveillance. A nondescript delivery van waited for them, driven by one of Twice's clones. As they climbed inside, exhaustion finally caught up with them. That, Toga declared, flopping across the van's floor, was the most exciting date ever. "It wasn't a date," Lady Nagant said flatly, checking her rifle for damage. "It was a strategic retreat." "It can be both," Toga insisted with a blood-smeared grin. Izuku leaned back against the van wall, analyzing what had just happened. "They found us too quickly. We have a security breach somewhere." "Or they got lucky," Dabi suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. "Endeavor doesn't get lucky," Lady Nagant countered. "That was coordinated intelligence work. Someone talked, or were being tracked." The implications were troubling. The Liberation Front had been growing rapidly, accepting new members attracted to their cause. Any one of them could be a hero plant or an opportunist selling information. "We need to compartmentalize more," Izuku decided. Smaller cells, limited information sharing. Or, Toga said, sitting up with uncharacteristic seriousness, we need to hit back so hard they stop chasing us. All eyes turned to her. What exactly are you suggesting? Lady Nagant asked cautiously. Toga's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. A preemptive strike. Something big and flashy that makes them play defense instead of offense. Targeting what? Dabi asked, interest evident in his tone. The hero's most precious resource, Toga replied, looking to Izuku. Their public image. Despite his exhaustion, Izuku felt his mind racing with the possibilities. Toga might be unstable, but her instincts were often sound. The heroes had just committed their top assets to a massive raid, leaving other vulnerabilities exposed. She's right, he said finally. We need to change the dynamic. Force them to protect instead of pursue. By the time they reached Safe House 3, Izuku had outlined the framework for their most ambitious operation yet, a simultaneous strike against 3 major hero agencies coupled with a public revelation that would shake the foundation of hero society. The Safe House was smaller than their previous hideout, forcing the Liberation Front members to work in close quarters. This cramped environment only intensified the complex dynamic between Izuku, Toga, and Lady Nagant. As they planned their counteroffensive, the 2 women found themselves constantly in proximity, their rivalry evolving in unexpected ways. Where Toga had initially been openly hostile to Nagant, she now studied her, observing her movements, her speech patterns, her interactions with Izuku. Nagant, for her part, began to develop a reluctant respect for Toga's unconventional intelligence and absolute loyalty to Izuku. She still considered the blood-obsessed girl dangerous and unstable, but no longer dismissed her as merely chaotic. Izuku noticed the shift as well, watching with cautious optimism as they gradually began to form something approximating a functional team. 3 days after their narrow escape from the hero raid, as final preparations for their counteroffensive were underway, Lady Nagant sought out Izuku in the small room he'd claimed as an office. We need to talk, she said without preamble. About Toga. Izuku looked up from his work, surprised by the topic. What about her? She's in love with you, Nagant stated matter-of-factly. You know that, right? Toga's feelings are complicated, Izuku replied carefully. Her perception of love is tied to her obsessions and her quirk. Lady Nagant shook her head. Don't dismiss it so easily. Yes, her mind works differently, but her loyalty to you is absolute. That's a powerful asset and a significant vulnerability. I don't think of my team members as assets or vulnerabilities, Izuku countered. Then you're making a strategic error, she said bluntly. Everything in a revolution is both personal and tactical. Relationships, loyalties, rivalries, they all impact operational effectiveness. Izuku considered her words. Is this about your professional assessment of our team dynamics, or is there something more specific concerning you? Lady Nagant held his gaze for a long moment. She watches me like she's memorizing me. At first, I thought it was jealousy or suspicion. Now I think it's something else. Like what? Like she's trying to understand what you see in me. A slight smile curved Nagant's lips. Which is ironic, since I've been wondering the same thing about her. The implication hung in the air between them. Izuku had been so focused on their cause, on strategy and operations, that he deliberately pushed aside the increasingly complex personal dynamics within his inner circle. We're fighting a revolution, he said finally. Personal entanglements are inevitable, Nagant finished for him. Humans aren't machines, Midoriya. Even revolutionaries need connections. Even leaders have hearts. Before Izuku could respond, Twice burst into the room with his typical frantic energy. Boss! Mega emergency! Everything's totally fine. The heroes are broadcasting some kind of announcement about us. Izuku and Nagant immediately followed him to the common area, where the rest of the Liberation Front was gathered around a television. On screen, a press conference was underway, with Endeavor and several other top heroes present alongside government officials. A specialized task force dedicated solely to apprehending the terrorist organization known as the Liberation Front, a government spokesman was saying. In light of escalating attacks and the clear threat they pose to public safety, we're implementing enhanced security measures throughout major cities. They're going to lock down civilian movement, Lady Nagant observed grimly. Make it harder for us to operate. Endeavor stepped to the microphone next. We have reason to believe that Izuku Midoriya, the leader of this criminal organization, is suffering from psychological trauma following his expulsion from UA High School. We urge any citizens with information on his whereabouts to come forward. He is to be considered extremely dangerous but may also be a victim of manipulation by more experienced villains. Toga laughed loudly. They think you're being manipulated. That's hilarious. But Izuku recognized the strategy immediately. They're trying to drive a wedge between us. Paint me as a victim and the rest of you as the real villains. Classic divide and conquer. The press conference continued with Hawks explaining new patrol patterns and civilian reporting procedures. It was a comprehensive response to the Liberation Front's growing influence, exactly what Izuku would have expected from intelligent opponents. This changes things, he said as the broadcast ended. They're adapting to our methods, preparing for the kind of strikes we've been executing. So we change too, Dabi suggested, blue flames dancing between his fingers. Izuku nodded slowly, his mind already recalibrating their approach. Our counteroffensive needs to be something they can't prepare for. Something completely outside their expectation framework. Like what? Mr. Compress asked. A slow smile spread across Izuku's face. Like telling the truth about a hero they all believe is a villain. All eyes turned to him questioningly. Lady Nagant, Izuku continued, you were imprisoned for killing another hero, correct? That's the official story. She stiffened slightly. Yes. But that's not what really happened, is it? Her eyes narrowed. How much do you know? Enough to suspect the commission buried the truth, Izuku replied. I want the full story, directly from you. For a moment, it seemed Lady Nagant might refuse. Then, with clinical detachment that barely masked old pain, she recounted her history, how she discovered other heroes committing crimes and covering for each other, how the commission had ordered her to eliminate witnesses rather than expose corruption, how she'd finally refused and been framed as a traitor. When she finished, the room was silent. Even Toga seemed subdued by the weight of Nagant's story. That, Izuku said quietly, is our counteroffensive. Not just strikes against corrupt institutions, but the full, unvarnished truth about what the hero system really is. Starting with your story. Lady Nagant shook her head. No one would believe it without evidence. Then we'll get evidence, Izuku declared. The commission keeps records of everything, insurance against betrayal. Those records will corroborate your account. A new operation took shape, more complex and ambitious than anything they'd attempted before. While their original counteroffensive against hero agencies would proceed as planned, they would simultaneously target the Commission's secret archives, extracting proof of their darkest operations. As the team dispersed to prepare, Toga skipped up to Izuku and Lady Nagant with her usual disturbing cheerfulness restored. So we're going to expose all the heroes' dirty little secrets, she giggled. This is going to be so much fun. Lady Nagant gave her an appraising look. It's going to be dangerous. The commission protects those archives better than anything else. Danger's my favorite flavor, Toga replied, twirling a knife between her fingers. Then, with surprising sincerity, she added, besides, your story deserves to be told. What they did to you was wrong. The unexpected support seemed to catch Nagant off guard. She studied Toga for a moment, then nodded once, a small acknowledgement that shifted something fundamental between them. Izuku watched this exchange with interest. Perhaps the rivalry between them was evolving into something more complex, not quite friendship, but a form of mutual respect born from shared purpose. The next week was a whirlwind of preparation. The Liberation Front operated with renewed focus, gathering intelligence, preparing equipment, and training for their most challenging operation yet. Izuku drove himself harder than anyone, sleeping only when absolutely necessary, constantly refining their approach. One night, as he reviewed facility schematics for the Commission's archive site, he became aware of a presence behind him. Turning, he found both Toga and Lady Nagant standing in the doorway of his makeshift office. "Intervention time," Toga announced cheerfully. "What?" Lady Nagant crossed her arms. "You haven't slept in approximately 36 hours. Your decision-making will be compromised if you continue." "I'm fine," Izuku insisted, turning back to his work. "There are still variables we haven't accounted for." "There are always variables you can't account for," Nagant countered. "That's combat reality." Toga skipped forward and spun his chair around, leaning down so their faces were inches apart. "If you collapse during the mission, I'm going to be very upset. And you really don't want that." The threat was delivered with her typical smile, but Izuku knew her well enough now to recognize the genuine concern beneath it. "Both of you need rest too," he pointed out. "This operation requires everyone at peak performance." "Already scheduled," Lady Nagant replied. "Team rotations for rest periods are established. You're the only one violating the protocol, which you created, by the way." Izuku couldn't help but smile at having his own procedures used against him. "All right. 4 hours. Then I need to finalize the approach vectors." 8 hours, Nagant countered firmly. "Non-negotiable." Toga clapped her hands together. "I'll make sure he actually sleeps. I'm great at watching people sleep." "That's not necessary," Izuku said quickly. Lady Nagant's lips curved in a slight smile. "I'll assist. To ensure compliance with protocol, of course." And so Izuku found himself escorted to his quarters by both women, each formidable in their own way, each seemingly determined to ensure he rested properly before their mission. "This is ridiculous," he protested as Toga dramatically fluffed the single pillow on his cot. "I'm perfectly capable of—" "Shut up and lie down," Lady Nagant interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. Surprisingly, Izuku did as instructed, too tired to fight both of them. As he stretched out on the cot, he expected them to leave. Instead, Toga plopped down on the floor beside him while Nagant took the room's only chair. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Making sure you actually sleep," Toga replied cheerfully. "Both of you are going to watch me sleep?" Lady Nagant shrugged. "Consider it tactical supervision." The absurdity of the situation, two deadly women ensuring he got proper rest before a high-risk mission, struck Izuku suddenly, and he laughed. A genuine laugh, perhaps his first since leaving UA. Toga's eyes widened. "You laughed? I've never heard you laugh before." Even Nagant seemed surprised by the sound. "I guess I needed that," Izuku admitted, suddenly aware of just how exhausted he really was. The weight of leadership, of constant vigilance and planning, had been wearing on him more than he'd realized. As his eyes grew heavy, he heard Toga and Nagant conversing quietly, their voices blending together as he drifted toward sleep. Their usual tension seemed temporarily suspended, united in the simple purpose of caring for their leader. The last thing he remembered thinking before sleep claimed him was how strange life had become, that he would find this peculiar comfort in the company of two women who, by any conventional standard, should be his enemies. The day of their counteroffensive arrived with rain, a steady downpour that shrouded Tokyo in gray mist, perfect cover for their operations. The Liberation Front moved with precision, split into 3 teams targeting different objectives simultaneously. Dabi led the first team against a corrupt hero agency known for exploiting younger heroes and siphoning government disaster relief funds. Mr. Compress headed the second team, targeting a media conglomerate that manipulated hero coverage in exchange for exclusive merchandising rights. Izuku commanded the primary mission himself, with Lady Nagant and Toga as his key operatives. Their objective, the Commission's classified archives, hidden beneath an ordinary-looking office building in central Tokyo. Remember, Izuku said as they prepared to move, our goal is information extraction, not destruction. Nagant's testimony only matters if we have proof to back it. The infiltration began smoothly. Using intelligence Lady Nagant had provided about the facility's security protocols, they bypassed the outer defenses without triggering alarms. Toga's quirk allowed her to transform into a commission official whose blood she'd collected during a previous operation, giving them access to restricted areas. The real challenge came at the archive level itself, a heavily fortified vault with biometric security and armed guards. For guards, rotating patrol pattern, 90-second windows between sweeps, Lady Nagant observed from their position in a maintenance corridor. The vault requires dual authentication, biometric plus encryption key. Izuku nodded. Toga, can you maintain your transformation long enough to get us through the first checkpoint? Probably, she replied, uncharacteristically serious. But I'll need more blood soon. This form is burning through my reserves faster than usual. We'll handle that when necessary, Izuku said, already calculating their approach. Nagant, I need you to create a distraction at the south corridor, something that will draw at least 2 guards without triggering a full lockdown. Lady Nagant moved into position with silent efficiency, while Izuku and Toga prepared for their part of the infiltration. Minutes later, the sound of a minor explosion echoed from the south corridor, followed by alarm calls from the guards. 2 moving to investigate, Izuku confirmed, watching through a small fiber-optic camera he deployed. Moving now. With Toga disguised as a commission official and Izuku using one for all to move with imperceptible speed, they neutralized the remaining guards without raising broader alarms. At the vault entrance, Toga's borrowed identity provided the biometric component, while Izuku used a decryption device he'd acquired from their support company Raid to handle the electronic lock. The vault door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing row upon row of secure server stacks and physical document storage. We need terminal access, Izuku said, moving quickly to a computer station. And we need to locate file series K7 through K12, those will contain the Black Operations records according to Nagant's information. They worked rapidly, Izuku hacking the terminal while Toga located the physical documents they needed. Lady Nagant rejoined them after ensuring their distraction wouldn't lead security back to the vault too quickly. 5 minutes until shift change, she warned. We need to be gone before they discover the unconscious guards. Izuku nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard as he extracted file after file containing the Commission's darkest secrets. Not just Lady Nagant's case, but dozens of others, cover-ups, assassinations, blackmail operations against heroes who stepped out of line. Got what we need, he announced, downloading the last of the files onto an encrypted drive. Toga, the physical documents? Right here, she replied, holding up a stack of folders. Plenty of juicy secrets. They sealed the vault behind them, leaving no immediate evidence of their intrusion, and began their exit. They were halfway to their extraction point when the facility's main alarms suddenly blared. They've discovered the breach, Lady Nagant said calmly, immediately shifting to combat stance. Alternative exit route? Izuku quickly recalculated. Maintenance shaft to sublevel 3, then northwest emergency stairs. It's longer but less likely to be covered in the initial lockdown. They changed direction, moving with urgency but discipline. The Commission facility's security forces were mobilizing rapidly, but they had the advantage of Lady Nagant's intimate knowledge of response protocols. They were nearly to their new exit point when disaster struck. Rounding a corner, they came face to face with Hawks and a squad of specialized security forces. The winged hero's eyes widened in surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected to encounter them personally. Midoriya. Should have known you'd be behind this. Hawks, Izuku acknowledged, instantly shifting to a fighting stance, one for all crackling around him. You're a long way from your usual patrol route. Special assignment, Hawks replied with a tight smile. The commission takes archive security very seriously. Almost like they have something to hide. That last comment was interesting, a hint of doubt or suspicion in Hawk's tone that Izuku immediately noted. The number 2 hero might not be entirely convinced of the commission's righteousness. Surrender the stolen data, Hawks continued, his wings spreading menacingly, and I can ensure you're treated fairly. Lady Nagant laughed bitterly. Like I was treated fairly? We both know what the commission's version of justice looks like, Hawks. Recognition flickered in the winged hero's eyes. Nagant. So the rumors were true. You joined Midoriya's little revolution. Enough talk, Toga said cheerfully, drawing her knives. Can we fight now? I really want to fight now. Hawk sighed. I was hoping to avoid this. What followed was one of the most intense combats Izuku had experienced since leaving UA. Hawks was phenomenally fast, his feathers attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously while the security team attempted to flank them. Izuku countered with one for all at 60%, creating shockwaves that disrupted the feathers' trajectories. Lady Nagant transformed her arm, firing specialized rounds that forced Hawks to constantly adjust his position. Toga darted between security operatives with terrifying speed, her knives finding gaps in body armor with surgical precision. Despite their coordination, they were outnumbered and fighting in restricted space. When a feather sliced through Izuku's shoulder, drawing blood, Toga reacted with characteristic extremity, her assault becoming more frenzied, more reckless. Toga, maintain discipline. Izuku called, seeing her overextend. Too late, a security operative caught her with a stunning blow, sending her crashing into a wall. As she slumped to the floor, Lady Nagant immediately shifted her fire to cover Toga's position, preventing the security team from capitalizing. Izuku made a split-second decision. Nagant, Extraction Protocol Delta. Get Toga and the data out. And leave you, she countered, still firing precisely while moving toward Toga's position. I'll create a diversion and follow, he assured her. The information is the mission, we can't lose it. Lady Nagant hesitated only briefly before nodding. With remarkable efficiency, she scooped up the semi-conscious Toga and the bag containing their extracted data. Northeast emergency exit is still viable. I'll secure transport. Go. Izuku commanded, then turned his full attention to Hawks and the security team. Let's see how fast you really are. He unleashed one for all at higher output than he'd ever risked in combat, 70%, sending green lightning crackling through the corridor as he moved with blinding speed. The security operatives couldn't track him, their shots going wide as he demolished their position. Hawks was another matter. The winged hero matched Izuku's speed, his feathers responding to thought faster than normal reflexes allowed. Their battle destroyed portions of the facility as they crashed through walls and barriers, each seeking advantage. You could have been the next symbol of peace, Hawk said during a momentary pause, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. What happened to you, kid? I saw the truth, Izuku replied, wiping blood from his own lip. The same truth you see but choose to ignore. Something flickered in Hawk's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or doubt. The commission isn't what heroes are supposed to be, Izuku continued, sensing an opening. You know that better than most. They turned you into a weapon when you were just a child. That doesn't justify what you're doing, Hawks countered, but his attack lacked its previous conviction. Doesn't it? We just extracted proof of assassinations, cover-ups, and corruption at the highest levels of hero society. How many villains were created by the very system claiming to protect people? Their combat resumed, but Izuku could sense the subtle hesitation in Hawk's movements, the fraction of a second where doubt affected decision. It was enough. During an exchange that shattered another wall, Izuku landed a decisive blow that sent Hawks crashing through debris. The winged hero struggled to rise, his wings damaged, blood staining his costume. Izuku stood over him, one for all still crackling around his body. I could capture you. Take you back to our base. Show you everything we found. Hawks laughed weakly. Why don't you? Because you need to see it on your own terms, Izuku replied, surprising them both. When we release the Commission's files publicly, read them. Make your own judgment. With that, he turned and ran, leaving the injured hero behind. It was a risk, Hawks could recover and pursue. But something told Izuku that the seeds of doubt he'd planted might yield more valuable results than a captured hero. He navigated through increasingly chaotic facility corridors as alarms blared and response teams mobilized. The diversion had worked, most security forces were focusing on his last known position, allowing Lady Nagant and Toga a cleaner escape route. By the time he reached the northeast emergency exit, facility security had established perimeter containment. Using one for all at maximum sustainable output, he simply blasted through their position, creating enough confusion to break through their line. 3 blocks away, in an unremarkable delivery van, he found Lady Nagant tending to Toga's injuries. You made it, Nagant observed, relief briefly visible in her usually composed expression. Any pursuit? Izuku asked, checking Toga's condition. She was conscious now, though dazed. None detected, Nagant replied. They're still establishing a search pattern based on your exit point. Toga grinned weakly up at him. Did you kill Bird Boy? No, Izuku said, gently checking the gash on her forehead. I gave him something to think about instead. As their driver, another of Twice clones, navigated through Tokyo's rain-slick streets, Izuku contacted the other teams. Both had completed their objectives successfully with minimal complications. The Liberation Front's counteroffensive had achieved all primary goals. We got everything, he confirmed, examining the data they'd extracted. Commission Black Operations files. Assassination orders. Cover-ups. Including complete documentation of your case, Nagant. Lady Nagant's expression remained neutral, but her hands tightened slightly on her rifle. Will it be enough? Combined with your testimony? More than enough, Izuku assured her. When we release this information, the entire hero system will face a reckoning. Toga, recovering her usual energy, bounced in her seat. So when do we blast it all over the internet? I want to see the heroes' faces when their precious reputations explode. Not immediately, Izuku cautioned. We need to compile, organize, and verify. Create an accessible narrative that the public can understand. Raw data dumps get dismissed as fabrications or overwhelm people with complexity. Always the strategist, Lady Nagant observed with a slight smile. Always, Izuku agreed. As they made their way to their newest safe house, a converted warehouse in Yokohama's industrial district, Izuku found himself reflecting on the growing dynamic between himself, Toga, and Lady Nagant. Today's operation had demonstrated something significant. Despite their differences, they functioned as a seamless unit in crisis. Toga's wild unpredictability balanced by Nagant's precise calculation. His own strategic oversight complemented by their specialized skills. It was more than tactical compatibility, it was a synergy that transcended professional cooperation. The realization wasn't entirely comfortable. Personal attachments complicated revolutionary leadership. Created vulnerabilities. Clouded judgment. Yet he couldn't deny that something had shifted between the three of them, something that felt dangerously like genuine connection. At the safe house, as the Liberation Front regrouped and began processing their extracted intelligence, Izuku found a quiet moment to check on Toga's injuries more thoroughly. You should be more careful, he said as he cleaned the cut on her forehead. That security operative nearly cracked your skull. Ah, are you worried about me, Deku? She teased, wincing slightly as the antiseptic stung. That's so sweet. I need all my key operatives functional, he replied automatically, falling back on professional distance. Toga's smile faded slightly. Always the leader, never the friend. Or anything else. The comment caught him off guard. Toga, it's fine, she interrupted, her smile returning but not quite reaching her eyes. I know what I am to the cause. To you. Before he could respond, Lady Nagant approached with a tablet displaying preliminary findings from the commission files. You need to see this, she said, her tone unusually urgent. The data revealed something none of them had anticipated: detailed plans for a specialized containment facility designed specifically to hold Izuku and other key Liberation Front members. More disturbing were the authorized, containment protocols, that essentially amounted to sanctioned torture for information extraction. They're preparing for our eventual capture, Lady Nagant summarized grimly. And they're not planning on constitutional rights applying. That changes the timeline, Izuku decided immediately. We need to release this information within 48 hours, before they can implement these protocols. The next 2 days were a flurry of activity as they prepared the commission files for public release. Izuku worked closely with Lady Nagant to contextualize the Black Operations records, while Toga, surprising everyone with her previously unknown video editing skills, created powerful visual presentations of the evidence. The atmosphere in the safe house grew increasingly tense as the release deadline approached. Everyone understood the stakes. This wasn't just another operation, but a fundamental escalation that would permanently change their standing in the public eye. Either they would be validated as truth-tellers exposing corruption, or further vilified as fabricators of lies. On the eve of the release, Izuku found himself on the safe house roof, staring out at Yokohama's industrial skyline. The weight of tomorrow's actions pressed heavily on him: the responsibility for his team's safety, for the revolution he'd started, for the consequences that would follow. He sensed rather than heard Lady Nagant's approach. She moved with a sniper's silence, but he'd grown attuned to her presence. Doubts? She asked, standing beside him. Contingencies, he corrected. There's no going back after tomorrow. The heroes, the government, they'll throw everything at us. She nodded, understanding immediately. You're concerned about casualties. On both sides. I didn't leave UA to become a killer, Izuku admitted quietly. No matter what they think of me now. Yet you lead a revolution, she observed. Revolutions have costs. They do. But there's a difference between necessary sacrifice and senseless violence. Lady Nagant studied him for a moment. That distinction is what separates you from Shigaraki. From All for One. It's why I chose your side. The admission surprised him. They'd never directly discussed her decision to join him rather than return to the commission or accept All for One's offer. I thought you joined because I offered the best strategic advantage, he said. A slight smile curved her lips. I've been a weapon for most of my life, Midoriya. I recognize the difference between someone who wants to use me and someone who sees me as human. The vulnerability in that last word struck him deeply. Before he could respond, the roof access door opened, and Toga bounded out. Secret meeting without me, she pouted dramatically. So rude. Lady Nagant's expression returned to its usual composed neutrality. Just discussing tomorrow's security parameters. Boring. Toga declared, skipping over to them. We should be celebrating instead. Tomorrow we get to watch Hero Society have a complete meltdown. Despite the tension, Izuku found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. We still need to be prepared for the response. Once this information goes public, we'll be the most hunted people in Japan. We already are, Toga pointed out reasonably. Might as well earn the title properly. She hopped onto the roof's edge, balancing precariously as she gazed out at the city lights. The position would have been terrifying for anyone else, but Toga's sense of self-preservation had always been unconventional at best. You know what I think? She said, spinning on her heel to face them. I think you're both too serious. Always planning, calculating, weighing options. She pointed accusingly at them. When was the last time either of you did something just because it felt good? Lady Nagant raised an eyebrow. Some of us prioritize survival over momentary pleasure. And that's why you're both so tense all the time. Toga exclaimed. Life's short, especially in our line of work. Might get captured tomorrow. Might get killed. Might as well enjoy tonight. There was a strange wisdom in her chaotic philosophy, Izuku realized. They were indeed standing on a precipice, about to take an irrevocable step. After tomorrow, nothing would be the same. What do you suggest? He asked, surprising both women. Toga's eyes lit up with delight at his unexpected receptiveness. Really? You're actually asking? I'm curious, he admitted. She jumped down from the ledge, suddenly serious. I think we should acknowledge what's happening between the three of us instead of pretending it's not there. Lady Nagant stiffened slightly. And what exactly do you think is happening? Oh, please, Toga rolled her eyes. The tension. The looks. The way you both positioned yourselves during the commission raid to protect each other. The way Deku watches both of us when he thinks we're not looking. Izuku felt heat rise to his face, uncomfortable with having his private observations so bluntly exposed. We're comrades in a revolutionary cause, Lady Nagant said carefully. Of course we're protective of each other. Toga laughed. Is that what they called it in the hero business? Because in villain terms, we've been dancing around something much more interesting than comradeship. The directness of her assessment created a moment of uncomfortable silence. It was Izuku who finally broke it. Whatever this is, he said quietly, tomorrow it becomes more complicated. More dangerous. Or more important, Toga countered, her typical playfulness giving way to surprising sincerity. If we're risking everything anyway, why deny ourselves connections that matter? Lady Nagant looked at Izuku, then at Toga, her composed expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. Finally, she said, the girl has a point, surprisingly. I usually do. Toga agreed cheerfully. People just don't listen because they think I'm crazy. You are crazy, Nagant replied matter-of-factly. But not wrong in this case. Izuku found himself at a crossroads he'd never anticipated when he began this revolutionary path. Personal attachment had seemed a luxury he couldn't afford, a vulnerability he couldn't risk. Yet here, on the eve of their most consequential action, he found himself reconsidering that position. After tomorrow, he said finally, if we survive the initial response, we'll revisit this conversation. Toga pouted. That's such a leader answer. All caution and conditions. It's a realistic answer, Lady Nagant corrected. But I agree with the sentiment behind it. She looked directly at Izuku. We will survive tomorrow. And we will have that conversation. The certainty in her voice was oddly reassuring, the confidence of a woman who had faced death countless times and emerged victorious. As they returned inside to finalize preparations, something had shifted between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of possibilities that extended beyond their revolutionary cause. The information release was more devastating than even Izuku had anticipated. At precisely 9 a.m., every major news organization, social media platform, and government information portal received identical data packages containing irrefutable evidence of the Hero Public Safety Commission's darkest operations. Lady Nagant's case featured prominently, a decorated hero assassin ordered to eliminate witnesses to corruption, then framed and imprisoned when she refused to execute an innocent civilian. But there were dozens of others. Heroes silenced, villains created through commission actions, families destroyed to protect the sanitized image of heroism. By noon, the nation was in uproar. News channels abandoned regular programming for continuous coverage of the revelations. Hero agencies issued frantic denials or desperate clarifications of their non-involvement. Government officials called for investigations while simultaneously distancing themselves from the commission. The Liberation Front watched it unfold from their safe house, monitoring public reaction through specialized surveillance programs. It's working even better than we expected, Mr. Compress observed, watching multiple news feeds simultaneously. The public is genuinely outraged. Twice nodded frantically. They hate us completely. They're starting to understand our position. Most significantly, prominent heroes were being forced to take public positions. Some defended the commission blindly. Others called for reform while condemning the Liberation Front's methods. A few, a very few, acknowledged the legitimacy of the concerns while carefully avoiding either condemnation or support. Hawks hasn't made a statement, Lady Nagant noted, studying the coverage. Neither has Endeavor. The top heroes are staying silent for now. They're waiting for direction, Izuku explained. This has caught the entire hero establishment off guard. They don't have a coordinated response strategy. Toga bounced excitedly beside him. Look at the social media metrics. Our hashtags are trending worldwide. People are actually using your quotes in their profiles, Deku. The public reaction was indeed remarkable. While many still viewed the Liberation Front as villains, a growing segment saw them as necessary whistleblowers. The conversation was shifting from dangerous terrorists to extreme but possibly justified revolutionaries. It was exactly what Izuku had hoped for, the beginning of genuine questioning of a corrupt system. The hero's response came that evening, a hastily organized press conference featuring the top 10 professional heroes along with government officials. They presented a unified front, condemning both the Commission's revealed actions and the Liberation Front's criminal methods. We acknowledge that serious ethical breaches have occurred, a somber Endeavor stated, clearly reading from prepared remarks. However, these isolated incidents do not reflect the heroic ideals that the vast majority of heroes uphold every day. Hawk stood beside him, his expression unreadable as Endeavor continued, we call upon Izuku Midoriya and his followers to surrender peacefully and participate in legal proceedings to address these concerns. Further violence and disruption only harm the very society you claim to be protecting. Izuku watched the conference intently, analyzing every word, every facial expression. They're trying to separate the message from the messenger, he observed. Acknowledge enough wrongdoing to seem responsive while delegitimizing our methods. Standard counter-revolutionary tactics, Lady Nagant agreed. The system absorbs just enough criticism to relieve pressure without fundamental change. So what's our response? Dabi asked, blue flames dancing between his fingers. More leaks. Izuku considered the question carefully. This was a critical juncture, their next move would define how the public perceived their ultimate goals. No, he decided finally. We've made our point with information. Now we need to demonstrate our vision through action. What kind of action? Mr. Compress asked. Rescue and rehabilitation, Izuku replied, surprising several Liberation Front members. There are dozens of people in the Commission files who were silenced, imprisoned, or otherwise victimized to protect the system. We're going to find them, free them, and give them a platform to tell their stories. It was a dramatic shift from their previous operations, not attacking corrupt institutions but actively helping their victims. The strategic calculus was sound, each rescued person would become living testimony to both the system's corruption and the Liberation Front's constructive purpose. Dabi looked skeptical. That sounds dangerously close to playing hero. It's not about heroics, Izuku countered. It's about building legitimacy. Showing that we're not just tearing down the old system but creating something better. The discussion continued late into the night, with varying perspectives on the proposed direction. Some members, like Dabi, preferred more aggressive actions. Others, like Twice and Spinner, enthusiastically supported the rescue operations. Mr. Compress saw the theatrical value in such public redemption stories. Through it all, Izuku noticed that both Toga and Lady Nagant remained silent, observing the debate without offering opinions. When the meeting finally concluded, with general agreement to proceed with the rescue strategy, Izuku found them waiting for him in his office. You didn't participate in the discussion, he noted, closing the door behind him. We had a different discussion to continue, Lady Nagant replied directly, referencing their rooftop conversation from the previous night. Toga grinned. The "if we survive" condition has been met. Time to talk about us. Izuku couldn't help but smile at her directness. I suppose it is. So? Toga prompted, hopping onto his desk. Are we going to keep pretending this is just a professional revolutionary relationship, or are we going to admit there's more happening? Lady Nagant leaned against the wall, her posture relaxed but her eyes intensely focused. She has a point. We function too seamlessly in the field for it to be merely tactical compatibility. And you both keep looking at me like you want to eat me up, Toga added helpfully. Though probably in different ways. Izuku had faced villain attacks, hero pursuits, and revolutionary leadership challenges, yet this conversation somehow felt more daunting than any of them. I never planned for this, he admitted finally. When I left UA, when I joined the League, when I formed the Liberation Front, personal connections weren't part of the strategy. Life rarely follows strategic plans, Lady Nagant observed with a slight smile. The best parts never do. Toga agreed enthusiastically. Izuku looked between them, the composed, precise ex-hero assassin and the chaotic, unpredictable blood enthusiast. On paper, they couldn't be more different. Yet they had become the two people he trusted most, the two whose absence would devastate him most profoundly. I care about both of you, he said simply. More than is strategically advisable. More than I've allowed myself to acknowledge. Toga's eyes widened with delight at his admission. Lady Nagant's expression remained controlled, but something in her posture softened. The question, Izuku continued, is what we do about it. In the middle of a revolution, with every hero in Japan hunting us, complicated personal relationships are, exactly what we need, Lady Nagant interrupted, surprising both him and Toga. I've lived most of my life denying personal connections in service to a cause. It doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you brittle. See? Toga bounced excitedly. Even the super serious sniper lady gets it. A moment of silence followed as they all considered the implications of moving forward. It was Toga who broke it, sliding off the desk to stand directly before Izuku. I've wanted to be close to you since the first time I saw you fight, she said, her typical manic energy replaced with unusual seriousness. Not just because I wanted your blood, though I definitely did, but because I saw something in you that matched something in me. She turned to Lady Nagant. And I hated you at first because I thought you'd take him away. But then I saw how you fought, how you protected him, how you challenged him, and I realized maybe there was room for both of us. Lady Nagant's expression remained composed, but her eyes revealed surprise at Toga's insight. I never expected this, she admitted. Any of it. When I accepted Midoriya's offer, it was strategic, the logical choice among bad options. She straightened from the wall, taking a step closer to them. I didn't anticipate finding connection. Purpose beyond survival. Izuku looked between them, these two extraordinary women who had somehow become essential to him, and made a decision that had nothing to do with strategy or revolution. Whatever this becomes, he said quietly, it needs to be real. Not tactical. Not for the cause. Just for us. Toga's smile was radiant. Lady Nagant's more restrained, but equally genuine. Just for us, Nagant agreed. Though the revolution is still pretty important too, Toga added with a giggle. Overthrowing corrupt hero society and all that. Despite the weight of everything surrounding them, the revolution, the pursuit, the uncertain future, Izuku found himself laughing. A genuine, unrestrained laugh that released tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. The three of them stood together in that small office, leaders of Japan's most wanted revolutionary organization, acknowledging something that transcended their cause, a connection that had formed in the crucible of betrayal and rebirth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hero system would regroup, adapt, strike back harder. Their rescue operations would face intense opposition. The path forward remained dangerous and uncertain. But for this moment, Izuku Midoriya allowed himself to feel something beyond the cold calculation that had defined him since his betrayal, a warmth that promised not just purpose, but genuine connection. The revolution within had succeeded. Chapter 3, New Reign, New Order. Dawn broke over the Liberation Front's newest headquarters, an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of Nagoya that they'd converted into a functional base of operations. 3 months had passed since their explosive revelation of the Hero Public Safety Commission's darkest secrets, and in that time, Japan had transformed. Izuku stood at the window of their command center, watching Liberation Front members training in the courtyard below. What had begun as a small group of disaffected villains had grown into a structured organization with over 100 dedicated operatives and thousands of civilian supporters. "Penny for your thoughts?" Lady Nagant asked, approaching silently to stand beside him. "Just reflecting on how far we've come," he replied, watching as Spinner led a combat drill with their newest recruits. 6 months ago, I was a UA student with a single goal, becoming the greatest hero. And now you've become something else entirely," she observed. He turned to her with a slight smile. "We all have." Their relationship had evolved alongside their revolutionary cause, professional respect deepening into personal connection, tentative trust blossoming into something neither of them had expected to find in the midst of upheaval. Lady Nagant, once the Commission's perfect weapon, had found purpose beyond killing. And Izuku, the betrayed hero in training, had found strength in embracing the gray areas his former mentors had denied existed. The door burst open as Toga bounded in, her perpetual energy undiminished by their increasingly dangerous circumstances. "Morning strategy session," she asked cheerfully, perching on the edge of the command table. "Or were you two having a moment? Please tell me it was a moment. Your serious faces are so cute together." Izuku had long since stopped being surprised by the dynamic between the three of them. What had begun as rivalry between Toga and Nagant had transformed into a complex relationship that somehow worked, Toga's chaotic energy balanced by Nagant's steady precision, all orbiting around Izuku's strategic vision and unyielding determination. "We have developments to discuss," Izuku said, activating the command center's main display. "Our intelligence network has confirmed 2 significant threats converging simultaneously." The screen displayed surveillance footage of hero movements throughout Japan, alongside reports of mysterious villain activities. "The heroes have formed a unified response task force," Lady Nagant noted, studying the data. "Endeavor, Hawks, Best Jeanist, and Mirko as the core team, with a dozen supporting heroes in rotating positions." "That's the obvious threat," Izuku agreed. "But the more concerning one is this." He highlighted reports of strange incidents across Japan, unexplained disappearances, quirk-related anomalies, and sightings of powerful villains who should have been imprisoned. "All for one," Toga said, her playfulness momentarily subdued. "Shigaraki's sugar daddy is making moves." "That's our assessment," Izuku confirmed. "While we've been dismantling the hero system, he's been building his own power base. Our sources indicate he's gathering villains for some larger purpose." Dabi entered the command center, his scarred face set in its usual scowl. "Speaking of Shigaraki, we've intercepted communications suggesting he's allied himself fully with All for One now." This news, while not entirely unexpected, added another layer of complication to their already challenging position. The Liberation Front now faced threats from both Hero Society and the most dangerous villain organization in Japan's history. "So we're caught between the heroes trying to maintain their corrupt system and All for One trying to replace it with his own tyranny," Lady Nagant summarized. "Precarious position. Or the perfect opportunity," Izuku countered, eyes gleaming with the strategic insight that had transformed him from student to revolutionary leader. "Both sides are focused on their own agendas. Neither fully understands what we're building." He expanded the display to show their network of operations, rehabilitation centers for victims of Hero Society, training facilities for their growing membership, communication hubs spreading their message of systemic change. "While they're fighting to control the old world, we're creating the foundation for a new one," he continued. "The rescue operations have been more successful than we anticipated. Every person we've freed from unjust imprisonment becomes both validation of our cause and expansion of our capabilities." Mr. Compress entered, carrying a tablet with fresh intelligence. Speaking of which, the Watanabe extraction was successful. Former pro-hero, imprisoned 5 years ago for questioning the Commission's operational ethics. She's already offering to help train our newer members. Izuku nodded, pleased. The steady stream of former heroes, unjustly imprisoned civilians, and others victimized by the system had been instrumental in legitimizing their cause. Each brought skills, knowledge, and perspectives that strengthened the Liberation Front's foundation. We need to accelerate our timeline, he decided, studying the converging threats. The longer we wait, the more opportunity for either the heroes or all for one to consolidate power. Toga hopped off the table, twirling a knife between her fingers. What's the plan, Deku? More rescue operations? Another big information dump? Ooh, can we finally take over a city? I vote for Hosu, their security is terrible. Nothing so direct, Izuku replied. We're going to infiltrate the Commission's main headquarters itself. Even Lady Nagant looked surprised. That's ambitious. Their central operations hub is one of the most secure facilities in Japan, especially after our previous raids. Which is precisely why it's our next target, Izuku explained. Not for destruction or data theft this time, but to implement something more permanent. He pulled up schematics of the Commission headquarters, detailed internal layouts that shouldn't have been accessible to anyone outside their highest security clearance. Where did you get these? Dabi asked, impressed despite himself. Hawks, Izuku replied simply. The room fell silent. Hawks, the number 2 hero, the Commission's most valuable asset, secretly providing intelligence to the Liberation Front? It seemed impossible. Explain, Lady Nagant said, her voice carefully controlled. He hasn't defected, Izuku clarified. But our encounter during the archive raid affected him more than I realized. He's been investigating the Commission files we released independently, verifying our claims. He's still committed to heroism, but his definition of it is evolving. So he just handed over classified schematics out of the goodness of his heart? Dabi asked skeptically. Not exactly, Izuku admitted. He left them where he knew our surveillance would find them. Plausible deniability for him, valuable intelligence for us. He's playing a dangerous middle ground. Toga giggled. Bird Boy's having a crisis of faith. That's adorable. It's significant, Lady Nagant corrected. Hawks was the Commission's perfect creation, their loyal, unquestioning weapon. If he's developing independent thought, others will follow. The implications were profound. Hawks represented the elite tier of professional heroism. If someone of his standing was questioning the system, cracks were forming at the highest levels. So what exactly are we planning for the Commission headquarters? Mr. Compress asked, bringing the discussion back to their immediate objective. Izuku's smile held an edge that would have been unrecognizable to his former classmates. We're going to install our own surveillance system inside their headquarters. Not to gather intelligence, but to broadcast their operations in real time to the public. The audacity of the plan was breathtaking. Total transparency forced upon an organization built on secrecy and manipulation. They'll discover it eventually, Lady Nagant pointed out. Of course, Izuku agreed. But by then, the damage will be done. Every closed-door meeting, every unethical order, every corrupt deal, all visible to the public they claim to protect. The planning session extended for hours, dissecting every aspect of the infiltration. Unlike their previous operations, this one would require unprecedented precision. The security at Commission headquarters had been dramatically enhanced since their archive raid, biometric scanners, quirk detection systems, and round-the-clock patrols by top-ranked heroes. As the meeting concluded and team assignments were finalized, Izuku found himself facing a rare moment of doubt. The operation carried enormous risk, not just of failure but of catastrophic loss. If captured, the core Liberation Front leadership would face the specialized containment protocols they'd exposed months earlier. Lady Nagant noticed his momentary hesitation. Second thoughts. Contingency planning, he replied automatically, then paused. And yes, some concern. This operation puts everything we've built at risk. Every meaningful action does, she said simply. Toga, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during the technical planning, suddenly slipped her arms around both of them. You know what we need before a big mission? Fun. All this serious planning is making everyone tense. Izuku couldn't help but smile. Toga's perspective was skewed in many ways, but her ability to find joy even in the most precarious circumstances had become an unexpected anchor for both him and Nagant. What did you have in mind? He asked, already anticipating some chaotic suggestion. Training exercise, she declared, surprising them both. The three of us against everyone else. Full contact combat simulation. Lady Nagant raised an eyebrow. That's actually a tactically sound suggestion. See? I can be practical too. Toga beamed. Plus I get to watch both of you fight, which is basically my favorite thing ever. The impromptu training session served multiple purposes, testing their coordination before the high-stakes mission, demonstrating leadership capabilities to newer members, and, as Toga had intended, relieving the tension that had been building. Fighting alongside Toga and Nagant had become second nature to Izuku. Their combat styles complemented each other perfectly, his power and analytical mind, Toga's unpredictable ferocity, and Nagant's precision and range. Against the rest of the Liberation Front's elite fighters, they moved with seamless coordination that bordered on precognition. Afterward, as they discussed the session's results, Izuku was struck by how far they'd all come. Toga's chaotic fighting style now incorporated strategic elements she'd learned from him. Lady Nagant had adapted her precise, isolated approach to function within a team. And he had incorporated their perspectives into his own combat methodology. You've created something remarkable here, Lady Nagant observed that evening, as the three of them reviewed final preparations for the commission Infiltration. Not just the organization, but the philosophy behind it. We created it, Izuku corrected. Each of us bringing something the others lacked. Toga nodded enthusiastically. Like how I bring spontaneity and Nagant brings precision and you bring that sexy strategic brain of yours. Izuku flushed slightly at her characterization, still not entirely accustomed to her bluntness despite months of close proximity. The point is, Lady Nagant continued, her lips quirking at Toga's comment, what we're building has the potential to outlast any of us individually. That's worth protecting. The undercurrent in her words was clear, a contingency conversation they'd been avoiding. What happened if some of them didn't survive the escalating conflict? We all come back, Izuku said firmly. That's the only acceptable outcome. Toga's expression grew uncharacteristically serious. But if we don't, we will, he insisted, unwilling to consider alternatives. Lady Nagant touched his arm gently. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. You taught us that. He knew she was right. Strategic planning required acknowledging all possibilities, even the most painful ones. If anything happens to me, he said finally, the Liberation Front continues under joint leadership. The two of you, plus Dobby and Mr. Compress as needed. Nothing's happening to you, Toga declared fiercely. I'd stab the world before I let that happen. Her intensity should have been disturbing. Instead, Izuku found it reassuring in its strange way, Toga's violent devotion balanced by Nagant's steady resolve, both creating a protective framework he'd never expected to find after UA's betrayal. The same applies to both of you, he continued. We've created something larger than ourselves now. It continues regardless of individual losses. The conversation shifted to more tactical concerns, but the emotional undercurrent remained, three people who had found unexpected connection in revolution, acknowledging both their strength together and the possibility of separation. The infiltration of Commission headquarters began at 3:17 a.m., precisely when shift rotations and security system diagnostics created a momentary vulnerability. The operation required perfect timing, flawless execution, and a bit of the unpredictable chaos that had become the Liberation Front signature. Izuku led the primary insertion team, himself, Lady Nagant, and Toga, plus 2 newer members with useful infiltration quirks. A secondary team led by Mr. Compress would create a distraction at a separate commission facility across the city, drawing response resources away from headquarters. Remember, this is installation, not extraction, Izuku reminded his team as they approached the facility through maintenance tunnels. The surveillance equipment needs to be placed at all 7 designated points for complete coverage. Speed and stealth are essential. Lady Nagant moved ahead, her rifle transformed to fire specialized rounds that temporarily disabled security cameras without triggering failure protocols. First approach clear. Proceeding to entry point Gamma. They accessed the facility through a cooling system intake, carefully navigating between automated security measures. The infiltration quirks of their newer members proved invaluable. One could temporarily mask heat signatures, while the other could create brief, blind spots in electronic surveillance. Inside, they split into predetermined paths, each responsible for specific surveillance installation points. Izuku took the most heavily secured area, the commission president's office and adjacent conference room, where the most sensitive decisions were made. The operation proceeded with surprising smoothness until Toga's voice suddenly came through their secure comms. We've got company. Heroes on site. Izuku checked the time, the hero patrol wasn't scheduled for another 22 minutes. Which heroes? Lemillion and Sun Eater, she reported. They just entered my sector. Proceeding with alternate route Baker. The unexpected presence of top-ranked heroes suggested their intelligence had been incomplete or, more concerningly, that someone had anticipated their operation. Maintain mission parameters, Izuku ordered calmly. Complete installations regardless of complications. Nagant, status? 3 installations complete, she replied. Moving to 4th position. No hero contact in my sector. Izuku had just finished installing his first surveillance unit when he sensed a presence behind him. He turned to find a familiar face, Mirio Togata, former UA student, now the pro-hero Lemillion. Midoriya, Mirio said, his usually cheerful expression replaced with somber determination. I had to see for myself if it was really you. Izuku straightened, one for all crackling subtly around him. Mirio. You're looking well for someone who lost his quirk and mysteriously got it back. The implication was clear, another example of the Commission's questionable operations, restoring Mirio's quirk through means they'd never publicly disclosed. We don't have to fight, Mirio said, ignoring the barb. There are people who want to talk to you. People who believe some of what you've been saying. That was unexpected. The Commission doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Not the Commission, Mirio clarified. Others. Heroes who think the system needs reform, not destruction. Izuku studied his former upperclassman carefully. Mirio had always been the embodiment of heroic ideals, honest, courageous, selfless. If he was suggesting dialogue rather than combat, it warranted consideration. Why should I trust anything connected to the hero system now? Izuku asked. Because you used to believe in it too, Mirio replied simply. And because despite everything that's happened, I don't think you want a war. You want change. Before Izuku could respond, Toga's voice came through his earpiece, got spotted by Sun Eater. Having fun. Don't worry about me. The mission timeline was compromised. Decisions needed to be made quickly. Who exactly wants to talk? Izuku asked, buying time as he calculated his next move. A coalition of heroes and support staff concerned about the Commission's direction, Mirio explained. Aizawa is part of it. So is All Might. The mention of his former mentor sent a jolt through Izuku that he fought to conceal. All Might, the man who had given him one for all, then abandoned him at the first sign of trouble, now wanted to talk. All Might had his chance to listen, Izuku said coldly. He chose his side. Did he? Or did he make a mistake based on manipulated information? Mirio pressed. People can be deceived, Midoriya. Even the symbol of peace. It was a tantalizing possibility, that All Might's betrayal had been based on deliberate misinformation rather than willing abandonment. But Izuku couldn't afford to be distracted by hope or nostalgia. The mission remained primary. Tell your coalition that the Liberation Front communicates through actions, not words, Izuku said, subtly shifting his position to access his second installation point. If they want dialogue, they can start by acknowledging the Commission's crimes publicly. Mirio sighed. I told them you'd say something like that. For what it's worth, I think you've done some good despite your methods. The Commission needed exposure. But? Izuku prompted, recognizing the qualification in his tone. But All for One is using the chaos you've created, Mirio said gravely. While Heroes and the Liberation Front fight each other, he's building something much worse than anything the Commission ever did. That aligned with Izuku's own intelligence. The third factor in Japan's power struggle was indeed capitalizing on the conflict between heroes and revolutionaries. We're well aware of All for One's movements, Izuku replied. Are you suggesting we form an alliance against him? I'm suggesting that destroying the hero system entirely might leave Japan defenseless against what comes next, Mirio countered. Their conversation was interrupted by a facility-wide alert, blaring alarms and flashing lights indicating a serious security breach. That's not us, Izuku realized immediately. His team's infiltration had been designed specifically to avoid triggering general alarms. Mirio's communicator activated. Emergency at West Quadrant. All heroes respond. Villain attack in progress, Shigaraki confirmed on site. Their eyes met in mutual understanding of what this meant. The coincidence was too precise to be accidental. Somehow, Shigaraki had known about the Liberation Front's operation and chosen this moment to launch his own assault on Commission headquarters. Looks like your warning about All for One came too late, Izuku observed grimly. They're already here. Through his earpiece, he called to his team, mission parameters changed. Complete installations if possible, but evacuation is now priority 1. Converge at extraction point Delta. What about Shigaraki? Lady Nagant asked, her voice calm despite the chaos erupting throughout the facility. Not our primary concern, Izuku replied, though he knew that was only partially true. A confrontation with his former league leader seemed increasingly inevitable. To Mirio, he said, you have bigger problems than us tonight. I suggest you focus on them. The hero hesitated, clearly torn between his duty to apprehend Izuku and the more immediate threat of Shigaraki's attack. This isn't over, Midoriya. It never is, Izuku agreed as Mirio phased through the floor, heading toward the West Quadrant attack. Left alone, Izuku quickly completed his second installation, then moved toward his final target. The facility had descended into chaos, security personnel racing toward Shigaraki's incursion, alarm systems blaring, emergency protocols activating. It created perfect cover for the Liberation Front's operation. By the time Izuku reached his final installation point, he confirmed that Lady Nagant had completed all of her assignments. Toga reported 3 of 5 completed, with hero interference preventing the remainder. That's sufficient, Izuku decided. Extraction protocol initiated. Rendezvous at Point Delta in 7 minutes. He made his way through increasingly chaotic corridors, using one for all to move with speed that security cameras couldn't properly track. He was nearly to the extraction point when he felt a familiar presence, a cold, crawling sensation that raised the hair on his neck. Midoriya, came a voice he hadn't heard in months. What a pleasant surprise. Tamura Shigaraki stepped from an adjacent corridor, his appearance significantly changed from their last encounter. His hair was neater, his posture more controlled, his eyes holding a calculating intelligence that had previously been obscured by rage. Most noticeably, his hands were free of the disembodied appendages he'd once worn, a symbolic abandonment of his past identity. Shigaraki, Izuku acknowledged, immediately shifting to a combat stance. Or should I call you all for one now? I'm not sure who I'm really talking to anymore. A smile spread across Shigaraki's face, too composed, too controlled to be entirely his own. Perceptive as always. Let's say we're collaborating more closely these days. Possession would be more accurate, Izuku countered, having studied the reports of Shigaraki's evolution under All for One's influence. He's using you as a vessel. He's elevating me, Shigaraki corrected, flexing his fingers in that familiar threatening gesture. Something you could have experienced as well, if you'd stayed with the League. Izuku's calm crackled with Lady Nagant's voice, I have visual on your position. Shigaraki confirmed. Do you require assistance? Without taking his eyes off Shigaraki, Izuku replied, maintain extraction schedule. I'll handle this. Shigaraki laughed, a sound that seemed to combine his own harsh cackle with someone else's deeper amusement. Still giving orders. Still thinking you're in control. That was always your weakness, Midoriya. You needed to be the leader, the strategist, the savior. While you just needed to destroy, Izuku replied. Until you became someone else's puppet. Anger flashed across Shigaraki's face, a glimpse of the original personality beneath the composed exterior. I'm nobody's puppet. All for One gave me power beyond anything you could imagine. At the cost of your autonomy, Izuku noted. Was it worth it? Instead of answering, Shigaraki attacked, lunging forward with decay activated, aiming to eliminate Izuku with a single touch. But Izuku had anticipated this, activating One for All at 70% and leaping clear of the deadly quirk's range. Their battle erupted through the Commission headquarters, two immensely powerful individuals with personal history and diametrically opposed visions for society's future. Izuku fought with the precision and tactical awareness he'd developed since leaving UA, while Shigaraki wielded a terrifying combination of his own decay quirk and new abilities clearly derived from All for One's influence. Your Liberation Front is just another system of control, Shigaraki taunted as they crashed through walls and barriers. You claim to fight for freedom while building your own hierarchy. We're building something people choose to join, Izuku countered, delivering a devastating kick that Shigaraki barely blocked. Not something imposed through terror or manipulation. Their combat carried them deeper into the facility, away from Izuku's planned extraction route. He realized Shigaraki was deliberately maneuvering him, separating him from his team, perhaps leading him into a trap. Through his comm, he heard Toga's increasingly concerned voice, Deku, where are you? Extraction window closing. We need to move. Proceed without me, he ordered, dodging another decay attack that disintegrated a support column. I'll find alternative extraction. Not happening, Lady Nagant's calm voice replied. Adjusting position to provide support. Toga, maintain extraction coordination for the rest of the team. Shigaraki smiled as debris crashed around them. Your companions are loyal. Useful trait in subordinates. They're not subordinates, Izuku corrected, landing a blow that sent Shigaraki skidding backward. They're partners. How progressive, Shigaraki mocked. Does that make rejection easier to accept when it comes? Like when your precious All Might cast you aside? The taunt struck deeper than Izuku wanted to admit. Despite everything he'd built since leaving UA, the wound of All Might's betrayal remained sensitive. Shigaraki pressed the advantage, his attacks becoming more focused, more personal. He replaced you, you know. Found another successor. Someone more reliable, less troublesome. Izuku knew he was being manipulated, but the words still cut. The possibility that All Might had simply moved on, found another vessel for One for All, added fresh pain to old injuries. His momentary distraction cost him. Shigaraki landed a glancing blow that didn't fully activate decay but still caused searing pain along Izuku's arm. He staggered back, regaining his focus just in time to avoid a follow-up attack that would have been fatal. The tide of battle shifted as Shigaraki pressed his advantage, forcing Izuku into an increasingly defensive position. One for All's power surged through him, but Shigaraki's augmented abilities seemed to counter his every move. Then, from somewhere above, a precise shot rang out. A specialized bullet struck Shigaraki's shoulder, momentarily disrupting his attack rhythm. Lady Nagant had found her vantage point. Shigaraki snarled, looking toward the source of the shot. Your sniper pet. Impressive range. Shame about her future. Before Izuku could process the threat, Shigaraki slammed his hand against a wall, activating a different quirk, not decay, but something that sent a pulse of energy through the building structure. The ceiling above them groaned ominously. Nagant, relocate now. Izuku shouted into his comm, recognizing Shigaraki's intent. He's targeting support structures. Another shot rang out, Lady Nagant's response and refusal to retreat. The bullet struck with remarkable precision, hitting Shigaraki exactly where his decay quirk originated, temporarily disrupting his most dangerous ability. Izuku seized the opportunity, channeling One for All to its maximum sustainable output and launching himself at Shigaraki with devastating force. The impact sent them both crashing through several walls into what appeared to be a central operations room, monitors displaying security feeds, workstations abandoned in the evacuation. As they fought amid the technological array, Izuku realized their location with sudden clarity. They had reached the Commission's broadcast center, where all public communications were coordinated and controlled. A plan formed instantly. Nagant, status of installation objectives. 5 fully operational, came her immediate reply. 2 partially functional. Sufficient for implementation. Shigaraki, recovering from Izuku's assault, looked between him and the communication equipment with dawning comprehension. This was your real target. Not information theft, broadcast capability. Among other things, Izuku confirmed, positioning himself between Shigaraki and the main control console. Understanding flashed across Shigaraki's face, followed by rage. You're going to broadcast the Commission's operations live. Force transparency on the entire hero system. While simultaneously revealing All for One's return, Izuku added. 2 corrupt power structures exposed simultaneously. For the first time, Shigaraki seemed genuinely concerned. All for One's plans relied heavily on operating from the shadows while Heroes and the Liberation Front weakened each other. Public exposure before he was ready would derail his carefully constructed timeline. I can't allow that, Shigaraki said, his voice deepening slightly as All for One's influence became more pronounced. You can't stop it, Izuku replied. The system is already active. The installations are complete. Within minutes, every conversation, every order, every operation in this facility will be visible to the entire nation. It wasn't entirely true, the broadcast function required manual activation from this control center. But Shigaraki didn't need to know that detail. Their standoff was interrupted by a new arrival, Toga, bursting through a side entrance with blood-smeared blades and her typical manic grin. Found you. This place is super fun when it's all chaotic. Shigaraki's eyes narrowed at her appearance. The blood fanatic. Still following your new master. Deku's not my master, Toga replied cheerfully, twirling a knife. He's my partner. Big difference. You wouldn't understand since you're just a body puppet now. Her taunting had the intended effect, Shigaraki's control slipped, rage momentarily overwhelming All for One's calculated influence. He lunged at Toga, decay activating around his hands. It was exactly the opening Izuku needed. While Shigaraki was distracted by Toga's perfectly timed appearance, he reached the broadcast console and initiated the sequence they'd planned, activating all 7 surveillance installations simultaneously and connecting them to Japan's emergency broadcast system. Screens throughout the room flickered as the system came online. Suddenly, every surveillance feed from the Commission headquarters was being transmitted to television stations, internet platforms, and public displays across Japan. Shigaraki realized his mistake too late. He abandoned his attack on Toga and turned back toward Izuku, but Lady Nagant had positioned herself at the entrance, her rifle trained on him with lethal precision. "It's over, Shigaraki," Izuku said calmly. "The Commission's secrets are exposed. All for One's return is documented. Both of your power bases just lost their primary advantage, operating from the shadows." Rage and calculation warred on Shigaraki's face as he assessed his options. He was powerful, but even he couldn't defeat all three of them simultaneously while also stopping the broadcast that was already underway. "This isn't victory," he snarled. "It's just the beginning of a larger war." "Maybe," Izuku acknowledged. "But it's a war that will be fought in the open now. No more manipulation from the darkness. No more heroes pretending corruption doesn't exist. No more villains hiding their true intentions." Shigaraki's expression shifted subtly, all for One's influence seemingly reasserting control over the momentary emotional outburst. "Impressive strategic thinking, Midoriya. All for One underestimated your evolution from naive hero student to revolutionary leader." Without warning, he slammed both hands against the floor, activating decay in a rapidly expanding circle that forced all three of them to retreat. As the floor disintegrated beneath them, Shigaraki used the chaos to make his escape, crashing through a wall with inhuman strength and disappearing into the facility's labyrinthine corridors. "Should we pursue?" Lady Nagant asked, rifle still ready. Izuku shook his head. "The broadcast is priority. We've accomplished our primary objective." The three of them secured the broadcast center, ensuring the transmission would continue uninterrupted. Throughout Japan, citizens were witnessing unprecedented transparency, seeing the Commission's emergency responses, hearing their panicked communications, observing as they attempted to contain both Shigaraki's attack and the information breach simultaneously. "Extraction route compromised," Lady Nagant reported after checking their planned escape path. "Facility lockdown protocols activated. All exit points under hero surveillance." Izuku assessed their options quickly. "Then we don't escape. We broadcast." "What?" Toga asked, confused. "We've exposed their operations," Izuku explained, moving to the main communication station. "Now we present our alternative directly to the public. While we have their attention." He activated the station's primary broadcast function, creating a direct channel to the same networks already receiving the surveillance feeds. With Lady Nagant and Toga flanking him, a deliberate visual composition showing the Liberation Front's leadership, he addressed the nation. "People of Japan," he began, his voice steady and confident. "You know me as Izuku Midoriya, former UA student, now labeled a villain by the system I once aspired to join. What you're witnessing tonight is the unfiltered reality of the hero society we've all been taught to trust unquestioningly." He gestured to the chaos visible on monitors around him. "The Hero Public Safety Commission has operated in secrecy for decades, making decisions that affect all our lives without accountability or transparency. Tonight, that changes. You'll see their operations in real time, the good and the bad, the heroic and the corrupt." Lady Nagant stepped forward. "I am Lady Nagant, former pro-hero and commission operative. I was imprisoned for refusing to execute innocent civilians who witnessed hero corruption. My case is not unique. Dozens of heroes and civilians have been silenced to maintain the illusion of a perfect system." Toga, surprisingly, maintained her focus during her segment. "The villains you fear aren't born, they're created when the system abandons them. I became what I am because no one helped me understand or control my quirk. The system labeled me dangerous and threw me away." Izuku continued, "But tonight isn't just about exposing corruption. It's about offering an alternative. The Liberation Front isn't fighting to destroy protection or safety. We're fighting to create a society where power is transparent, where quirks aren't categorized as heroic or villainous based on arbitrary standards, where people are judged by their actions rather than their abilities." As he spoke, their broadcast reached millions, citizens seeing for the first time not the caricatured villains portrayed by hero media, but articulate revolutionaries with compelling grievances and a coherent vision. You've been told that without the current hero system, chaos would reign, Izuku said, his passion evident. But look around you. The chaos began when the system prioritized its image over its purpose. When heroes became celebrities rather than protectors. When agencies became profit-driven enterprises rather than public services. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. We offer a different path. Transparent power. Community-based protection. Quirk education for all, not just those deemed suitable for heroics. Rehabilitation rather than imprisonment for those who can be reformed. As their broadcast continued, reports came in of public reactions across Japan, crowds gathering in city centers, watching on massive displays. Some cheered. Others protested. Most simply listened, perhaps hearing these perspectives for the first time without media filtration. They had just finished outlining their vision when the broadcast center's doors burst open. A team of pro-heroes entered, led by an unexpected figure, Hawks, the Commission's most trusted asset, now apparently leading the response to their incursion. That's enough, the winged hero said, though his tone lacked conviction. Broadcast terminated. Izuku met his gaze steadily. Is it? Or are you just following orders again without questioning them? Something flickered in Hawk's eyes, doubt, perhaps, or recognition. He had provided the facility schematics, after all, whether directly or indirectly. His commitment to the Commission's methods had been wavering for months. You've made your point, Hawk said, gesturing for his team to secure the room but making no immediate move to apprehend them. The public has heard your perspective. And yours, Izuku replied. They've seen how the Commission operates tonight. How heroes respond. They've witnessed both Shigaraki's attack and our broadcast. Now they can judge for themselves which vision for society they prefer. Hawks hesitated, clearly struggling with internal conflict. You know I can't just let you walk out of here. You could, Lady Nagant suggested quietly. You've seen enough to know we're not what they claim we are. The tension in the room was palpable as Hawks weighed his options, his duty against his evolving understanding of right and wrong. The other heroes watched uncertainly, awaiting his lead. Finally, he said, the East Service corridor will be minimally secured for the next 10 minutes due to damage from Shigaraki's attack. Standard response protocols would focus resources elsewhere during that window. It was as close to explicit assistance as he could offer while maintaining his position. Izuku nodded once, understanding perfectly. We've accomplished what we came to do. No further conflict is necessary tonight. As they moved toward the indicated exit route, Hawks called after them, this doesn't end here, Midoriya. The system won't fall from one night of exposure. Of course not, Izuku agreed, pausing at the doorway. But it has begun to transform. That's all we ever wanted. Their extraction proceeded without further confrontation, whether due to Hawk's subtle intervention or the general chaos still enveloping the facility as they dealt with both Shigaraki's attack and the ongoing information exposure. By dawn, they had returned to their Nagoya base, where the rest of the Liberation Front awaited anxiously. The operation had succeeded beyond their expectations, not just installing the surveillance system, but broadcasting their message directly to millions while Shigaraki's simultaneous attack provided irrefutable evidence of the villain threat the Commission had been downplaying. In the days that followed, Japan experienced transformation unprecedented in modern history. The Commission's exposed operations created public outrage that couldn't be contained. Several top officials resigned. Reform candidates emerged, promising transparency and accountability. More surprisingly, heroes themselves began taking positions on systemic change, some defending the status quo, others acknowledging the need for reform, a few even openly supporting aspects of the Liberation Front's vision. All for One's forces withdrew from public operations, their timeline disrupted by the premature exposure of their activities. Shigaraki wasn't seen or heard from for weeks after the broadcast center confrontation. The Liberation Front, meanwhile, shifted from revolutionary opposition to revolutionary governance in the territories where their influence was strongest. Several districts in industrial cities effectively recognized their authority, allowing them to implement their vision on a limited scale: transparent power structures, community-based protection, quirk education for all. These liberation zones became both proof of concept and ongoing experiment, demonstrating that alternatives to the traditional hero system could function effectively while continuously evolving based on community feedback. 3 months after the Commission headquarters operation, Izuku stood on the rooftop of their newest headquarters, a repurposed government building in Saitama that now served as both administrative center and training facility for their growing organization. Lady Nagant joined him, her rifle slung across her back more out of habit than immediate need. "The Hosu district representatives are waiting to discuss their transition plan," she said. "Another territory voluntarily joining our framework." Izuku nodded, still gazing out at the city below. "Have them meet with the integration team first. I want to ensure their expectations align with our capabilities." Always the strategic thinker, she observed with a slight smile. "Even in victory." "This isn't victory yet," he replied. "It's transition. The old system is weakening, but not gone. All for One is regrouping, not defeated. We have momentum, not conclusion." Lady Nagant stepped closer, her shoulder brushing his. "You've achieved more in a year than most revolutionaries do in a lifetime. The hero system is reforming itself in response to our pressure. Communities are voluntarily adopting our governance model. Former villains are finding purpose beyond destruction. And former heroes are finding purpose beyond blind obedience," he added, glancing at her with genuine warmth. Their moment was interrupted by Toga's characteristic boundless energy as she burst onto the rooftop. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere. The Ketsubutsu students have arrived for the quirk education program. Since implementing their governance model, one of their most successful initiatives had been offering comprehensive quirk education to anyone who sought it, not just those pursuing heroics, but anyone seeking to understand and control their abilities. Former hero students from schools affected by the Commission's collapse had begun transferring to their programs, bringing valuable perspectives and skills. "I'll be down shortly," Izuku assured her. Toga skipped over to join them at the rooftop edge. "Pretty view. All those people down there living in a system that's actually trying to help them instead of just using them for ratings and merchandise. It's almost enough to make me feel all warm and squishy inside." Lady Nagant shook her head, but her expression held fondness rather than exasperation. "You have an unusual way of expressing civic pride. That's why you both love me," Toga replied with absolute confidence, inserting herself between them and linking arms with both. "I keep things interesting." The dynamic between them had evolved alongside their revolutionary cause, initial wariness giving way to mutual respect, then genuine affection, and finally something deeper that defied conventional definition. 3 damaged individuals who had found in each other what society had failed to provide: acceptance, understanding, purpose. "We should go," Izuku said finally. "The Ketsubutsu students represent something important, the next generation choosing our vision over the traditional path." As they turned to leave, Toga suddenly asked, "Do you ever regret it? Leaving the hero path?" The question caught Izuku by surprise. Toga rarely engaged in serious retrospection. "No," he answered after a moment's consideration. "I regret that it took betrayal to show me the truth, but not the path it set me on." He glanced between Toga and Nagant. "If I'd stayed at UA, become the hero they wanted me to be, I never would have found this, our cause, our community." "Us," Toga supplied helpfully. "Yes," he acknowledged with a smile. "Us." Lady Nagant's usual composure softened. "From hero student to villain to revolutionary leader. Quite the journey, Midoriya." "And it's just beginning," he replied, looking out at the city one last time before turning away from the view. "We've created the foundation. Now we build something that lasts." Together, the three of them descended from the rooftop to continue the work of revolution, not through destruction, but through creation. Building a system where transparency replaced secrecy, inclusion replaced exclusion, and humanity replaced rigid categorization. The betrayed hero student had indeed conquered the villains, not by defeating them, but by transforming them. And in the process, he'd found something he never expected, not just two remarkable partners, but a purpose greater than heroism itself. The path forward remained challenging, with All for One's forces still lurking and remnants of the old hero system resisting change. But for the first time since leaving UA, Izuku Midoriya was certain of his direction, not restoring what was, but creating what could be. A new reign. A new order. A revolution completed not through a single dramatic moment, but through the persistent, difficult work of building something better from the ruins of the old. And he wouldn't be doing it alone. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.